Let them know you can bring that DeFi conversation over here. But while we wait for them, let's jump right into the top 10 stories of the day, shall we? Yes, yes, we
They've all come
shall.
over.
Boom,
They've all
right
come
on
over.
time. Welcome, everybody. We're going to do the top 10 stories of the day. Let's do this. Woo! Yeehaw! We've got the top story is Netflix reports their Q2 revenue, and they beat their earnings. You know what we need to do? Here's what I want to do. I want to do, as soon as everyone comes over from the DeFi room, I want to do a poll and see how many people were here when we met 5 hours ago, and how many were not here when we met 5 hours ago. Can we do that? Can we start with a poll today, Cal? Do you mind if we try that?
Yeah, let's do that. We haven't done
Okay.
that for a while.
We have
Even the
not done that.
audience,
We
right?
used to do
Not just
these
the
all the
stage.
time, and we have
Yeah.
not done one for a long time. But if you could, everybody, do us a very big favor. We're trying to figure out how many people, first on stage, we can do a poll on stage. Flash your mics if you were here in the session 5 hours ago. Ken was here. So we got Mahogany, Messy, Cheryl. Susan was not. JT was not. Jean Francois was not. Roz was. Cam was not. Cal was not. Jesse was not. And
No, I
Tammy was not.
missed it.
So it's a little more than half. Okay, thanks everybody. Now we want to do the same thing with the audience, but the audience unfortunately can't flash their mics. But what they can do is raise their hand as if they want to jump up on stage. If that makes sense. So raise your hand if you were here 5 hours ago when we were doing Tech News Around the World 5 hours ago. Please raise your hand if you were here 5 hours ago when we were doing Tech News Around the World 5 hours ago. I know Renjant was, because he jumped up on stage briefly during that time, and he had a really fantastic headline to share. Okay, so we've got 26. Only 26 people were here last time? 28?
Well, 26 who raised their hands. So
20, don't be shy. There was way more than, no, we had 480 people here. Only 26? Wow, are they audiences?
Room's not
well,
full yet, bro.
yeah, do it as a comparison. Like
I
so,
know.
yeah.
Okay.
Say who doesn't, who
Okay, now
wasn't there.
put your hands down. Everyone hands down, please, real fast. And now put your hands up if you weren't here 5 hours ago when we did Tech News 5 hours ago. Right. Wow. Hardly anyone was here 5 hours ago when we did it last time. I did not realize that. These are two totally separate audiences.
Many
Yes, they
people
are.
might have been sleeping, Tyler.
Right. No, of course. Of course. And sleep is important,
Different region as well. Different
Yeah,
region.
of course. Of course. I get it. I just didn't know. We'd never done that poll before. So I didn't know if it was the same audience or not. Because it's a lot of the same people on stage for both. But it's not a lot of the same people in the audience for both. And now I know. And I didn't know. But now I know. So, okay. So we can do the headlines, the top 10 headlines, because for the very first time ever, the top 10 headlines right now are still quite similar to the top 10 headlines when we were here 6 hours ago. That's not usually the case. In fact, it's never the case. This is the first time. But it is. But now that we know that the audience is overwhelmingly people who were not here last time, we can go ahead and do them. So that's what we will do. So the top story is the same as it was 6 hours ago, which is Netflix did their quarterly earnings report where they say how much money they made for the past quarter. And all the big companies that trade on the stock market do this. And they all do it around the same time, like in the same week. And so you're going to see a lot of these over the next week. You're going to have Apple and Google, all the big tech companies are all going to be reporting what they did. And when they do that, it's going to move the markets. The markets are going to get quite volatile this week because the tech companies are now moving the markets. And if tech is strong, it'll move the market up. And if the tech companies didn't have a strong quarter, it will very surely move the markets down. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And so the markets could go up or down depending on how the tech companies report, because they are now making up a really powerful part of the market. And so we're going to watch them very closely to figure out. Some people are thinking that the market's a little too high and it's going to come down. Some people say no, that for other reasons, it's still going to go up. And I would suggest watching these tech company earnings reports closely to figure out where it's going. And that's why this Netflix article is getting so much attention, because it's the first one down the pipe. And turns out Yeah, they didn't do so bad. Not great. They didn't crush it. It wasn't a tremendously fantastic quarter, but it wasn't terrible either. And one way to think of these that these tech companies during this week where they bring in their results for the quarter is kind of like school kids doing book reports in front of the class with the teacher, and the teacher is Wall Street. And the teacher is either going to, give them a gold star, or they're grounded and they get a big spanking, in front of the class, and it's quite embarrassing. But Netflix is the first student up in front of the class, and they reported they made $7.34 billion in 3 months. That is a lot of money. But what's important is how much did the teacher or Wall Street think they were going to make? And that's called the estimate. And the official estimate was 7.32 billion was the estimate. And they did beat the estimate by a little bit at 7.3.
Tyler, do you just want to clarify that's revenue, not earnings? So they didn't
Yes,
really make it or earn. Yeah,
that's
okay.
right. Revenue, not earnings. So they reported Q2 revenue of 7.34 versus 7.32, which was the expected. And that's barely beating it by Wall Street standards. And when you barely beat it, that's not so great. You're supposed to crush it. You're supposed to come in and be like, you know what? Boom. We did 8 billion, and just over deliver, because, that's how it's done. And if you don't over deliver and you just barely beat it, you could get beat up. Your stock could go down a bit. However, Netflix is not a dumb company, and Reed Hastings is not a dumb person. So he had a backup plan because he knew he wasn't going to crush it on the revenue numbers this year, because that market of streaming video is kind of drying up a little bit. There's a lot of competitors, and they've been going at it together. They've been fighting to get everybody to sign up for either Hulu or Disney Plus or Netflix or Amazon Prime or Apple TV. And there's a lot of horses in that race, and they're all competing for all of the low-hanging fruit on the tree, which are people who have not signed up for one of those services. You're a virgin consumer, subscriber. It's once you've subscribed to one, it's very hard to get you to change. And that's why they're racing out to compete to get all of the virgin customers who have not subscribed previously. So once the low-hanging fruit on the tree has been picked, then you have to start thinking creatively and get a ladder and start picking fruit higher up on the tree. But and that's when we got two little hints that Netflix was reaching for the ladder recently. One is they started hiring key people to go into video games, as they're not only just focused on their traditional business of streaming movies and TV shows. They're now going into video games. Well, why even bother going into video games if there's still a lot of fruit to pick on the bottom of the tree? Why even bother with the ladder if there's low-hanging fruit on the tree? There's not. The low-hanging fruit on the trees, there's now lots of people picking on the same tree. And Disney Plus, Hulu, AT&T partnered with Discovery and Warner and Amazon Prime, and there's now about 6 horses in that race. So Netflix is thinking, you know what? I don't know if we're going to be able to pick the same crazy amount of apples as usual. Let's go get the ladder. Let's start focusing on the upper part of the tree, which is video games, that's going to be fantastic for them. And that's very smart. That's a great way to continue to get enough apples. Just get a ladder. So there was another hint that they were reaching for the ladder, which is they mentioned that they were going to crack down on account sharing, because let's face it, you're sharing your account with your parents or your brother or your sister or your cousin or whatever. Everybody's doing it. Netflix knows you're doing it, and they honestly don't care that you're doing that. What they do care about is that they were going into lots of new markets, because Netflix is remarkably global, actually. And in a lot of those newer markets where, you could say developing markets, people are very entrepreneurial, and they get the account and they pay the monthly fee, and then they split it up with everybody in their neighborhood or their village, and they've got 50 people sharing the same Netflix account, and they all agree, you get Wednesday, I get Friday, you got Saturday and the weekends, and Bobby's got Tuesday afternoon, and Sarah's got Thursday evenings. And they were doing that and actually making money off of it. And that's when they decided, we need to crack down on this. But again, you wouldn't really crack down on that if you were still focusing on low hanging fruit at the bottom of the tree. But the lower part of the tree is drying up. So
But
that's
by the
it.
way, Tyler,
Yes,
Reed
Ken.
Hastings, the CEO, was it Reed Hastings, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came out right after that original supposed announcement about cracking down on it and walked it back somewhat and said it's more like people who don't even live in the same home as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to multiple accounts, maybe in the same house or something. They kind of tried to walk it back. He
Right.
basically he did walk it back a bit, saying he didn't want to hurt the consumer.
Yeah. It's remarkable how kind of kind they are on that regard. Like they really don't care if you're sharing it in the same home. And technically they could if they wanted to. There other companies do. So anyway, but
And there is one thing that's changed from 5 hours ago, by the way, with Netflix.
what's that?
When we first did this 5 hours ago, the market in New York had already closed, and there's an aftermarket. And usually, when stocks really miss, the stock trades down after market. The stock really didn't trade down after market, but now it's trading down more significantly. So apparently, as the market opened, people have taken a closer look at those numbers, and probably because of those domestic subs declining have decided that's the most important barometer and sent the stock down, which they didn't do after the market when they first reported.
And thank you for reminding me. That was actually the kind of most surprising reveal of their quarter report, where they report their revenue for the quarter, but they also report how many new subscriptions they have, how many paid subscriptions or free subscriptions. Like in the case of Spotify, I think Netflix doesn't even offer a free package or tier, right? It's all paid. But they said in the U.S. and Canada they lost 433,000 subscriptions, and that tells you that the competitors are now starting to get former Netflix subscribers are now switching over to things like Disney Plus and potentially Amazon Prime, Apple TV, whatever it might be. So now that is this the first quarter where they actually lost subscribers? I imagine it is.
I don't know. I just tweeted it at the TNATW that you probably talked about this a couple of days ago, that they're getting into gaming as well.
Yes.
And so that's obviously another vertical, an entire different.
But they're the clever,
revenue.
smart of them to be right on top of that and to be able to mention that at the quarterly earnings report, because as they're giving their book report in front of the class, where they barely passed the exam, and the teacher's ready to spank them good, and they say, but we've got this whole new bag of tricks. So we're going to go into video games, and we've already hired some key people, and boy, did they barely get those people hired in time. Some of those were just announced in the past 24, 48 hours. And I bet they were under a lot of pressure to hire that person. And I wonder if that person that they hired, which if I recall correctly, there was a key person from Google and a key person from Facebook. And if those key people from Facebook and Google were playing their cards correctly, and they knew that the quarterly report was today, and they knew that there was going to be the shareholder conference call at the end of the report, that hiring those names to jump on board is worth a lot of money just to be able to say, we've already hired these key people from Facebook and Google and whatnot. They could have extracted a lot of a pound of flesh just to sign the dotted line before the earnings call so that they could tell the shareholders that they had hired those key new people. But they have. So kudos to Netflix for getting those deals signed to get that new talent in the house to build that whole new arm of the company. Smart. Good on you, Netflix. You gotta diversify, and it's a smart area to diversify in. And one other thing, they not only will they very likely, I mean, we know they're going into games. They're making a big deal about the fact they're going into games now, but the nature of Netflix and the future of 360 content, let's call it, is of where you walk into a movie or a VR experience and you're walking around and it's 360 degrees and you're standing next to Tom Hanks, who's an actor in this experience. And we don't yet know what that's going to be like because we have video games today and we can imagine what 360 video games are going to be like because in video games, you're the main character traditionally anyways. And you're walking around this, digital world. So it's very easy to imagine what VR video games are going to be like. In fact, there already are lots of VR video games. But a VR 360 movie is still not clear what that's going to be like, because there's drama, there's a script, there's actors, but you're in it too, assumedly. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you're just watching it like a fly on the wall, like theater, or are you standing on stage with the actors? As maybe both. So, but that whole realm is up for debate and up for grabs. And if Netflix certainly wants to be at the forefront in the queue, kind of front in line for when we figure out what that future looks like, of the future of kind of narrative content, let's call it, rather than video game content, which is kind of asynchronous content. So narrative-based content, I mean, narratives are huge. Stories are a huge business. Hollywood is in the business of storytelling, and we have to imagine stories aren't going away anytime soon. The question is, how do you do stories in a 360 environment? We don't know.
I
We've
think that
never done it.
I
Yeah.
think that well, just a couple things on this particular topic. And good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Um,
Michael.
good morning. Good morning. With Netflix, it's very interesting because I've always, if for those of you that don't know, you can log into your Netflix account on the web, and it'll show you every single every single device that's using your account. All of them. I remember giving, because I'm the one who pays for my Netflix account, but I've given it to my siblings and my parents. And I remember at one point there were like 25 or 30 devices running that thing all over the country, like in Florida and Michigan and Atlanta. Like, they had it on all their devices. I know my siblings were sharing it with their friends, and I knew that because Netflix very openly provides all that data to you as a user on the back end in your account if you log in on the internet. So they know about everyone that's using it. They just literally don't care. And I think the reason they don't care is because, yeah, they lost a couple 100,000, but they also, they were only 2 million short of what they had forecasted. They had forecasted for the quarter, and they ended up with 4 million. That couple 100,000 that they lost. I mean, at the end of the day, especially with Netflix and how much they charge, I think that basically, and I have to believe that I don't know if this is true or not, but most of their subscribers are probably like me in the sense that I have Disney Plus, I have HBO Max, I have Netflix, I have Hulu. Those are all my mains. Like, I wouldn't trade Netflix for Disney Plus. Those are very much, they pair together. I would never trade one over the other. And as far as the gaming is concerned, Netflix knows a lot about how to handle gaming, because for some time, for those of you that remember when Netflix was on DVD, they actually had a competitor named GameFly, and GameFly used to do what Netflix does, but via DVD or via the mail,
And
games in the
Redbox.
mail.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
isn't that just another way of achieving a freemium business model?
Well, and this is where it gets interesting, because Netflix has several gaming models that they could chase right now, and the two markets that I see that are going to be most profitable. You remember how big their Bender Bash episode was, where people could choose their own adventure kind of thing, where it was kind of like a choose your own adventure book. They could go that route, but also, as Tyler was kind of hinting at, going the VR route is very, very. There's some really excellent VR stories out there already. The difference is they're not curated. In other words, you go in the Oculus store and you purchase one story at a time. So you'll purchase a quote unquote game that is 25 minutes long, but in reality, you're walking into the middle of a 360-degree narrative that's taking place over 25 minutes. And you may or may not participate, but you are definitely actively inside of the story. So there's a number of different ways Netflix could approach this. And I think that the reason that they're not so fucking, cracking down on people about the password thing or the sharing thing is they definitely know they've got something ridiculous in the bag in terms of gaming, and I'm very curious to see what they're going to do.
But Michael,
So I
what's
will say, this is Danish. I just had a quick question, a quick point. That again, I'm not a Netflix expert or anything. I just did a deep dive on them for our own company because we were thinking about copying that model of offering, a membership and allowing people to share it with their families. People may not know this, but Netflix, and this is cool to check out, has a 2.5% churn. That's it. That means that in an annual year, think about a consumer product with that level of churn. That means in an annual year, 2.5% of people will leave. I know that they mentioned a lot of people are leaving, but one of the things that they found, and one of the really interesting things, if you look across other streaming platforms, Disney Plus is double that. Apple TV is 3 to 4 times that. And so,
Yep.
so what they have found, which is fascinating, is that if Michael's Nana is using his Netflix and he gets rid of that Netflix, Nana's going to be mad. And and that's actually something that they found, is that people tend to not churn, not just because they're using the Netflix, but because everybody else is too. And that's why
Yep.
Disney's copying that and Apple TV is trying to copy that. Just a
Tyler,
basic
Um,
business side.
just
Tyler,
yeah, just okay. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I
Go
was
on,
just
Messi.
gonna quickly just mention that. I think I heard Emmy mention it in the morning as well. We had Netflix and others, Amazon Prime and things like that in the US. But I'm not sure if they tell everybody or if they enforce it like everybody was mentioning. But I know that they told us that we can share it only with 5 people, and we didn't go beyond that to test it. But I know a lot of the people in our family who are using it don't go beyond 5. So I just wanted to add that we only share it with those people.
Tyler, I've
yeah,
got a lot of experience in this going back 3 decades.
yeah.
When CD-ROM hit, I wrote a business plan for Crystal Dynamics, and that's kind of what kicked off, not my business plan, but they were a game studio. That's what kicked off some of these initial digital Hollywood conversations, because the CD-ROM was the first time people were envisioning what you were just describing, which is these interactive storytelling things. That specific thing didn't fully take off back in those days because of technology and a bunch of other things. But then I will tell you, this deal and all of this Netflix stuff, it's about the context is actually it's about the gamers. The gamers dwarf the number of gamers in the world really dwarf the number of people watching Netflix and VOD.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another giant company like Amazon, who you've been reading the news rather, that they've been struggling to try to really pop the games market, right? So
Yeah.
so that's another context. That's the context I would use on it. It's like it's another company who's going to go for it, but it's been this slow march into the TV and media. Those people kind of losing the users into the giant gaming space that Michael speaks about all the time, because it's
And
just
Can I
go ahead,
just
Al.
yeah,
add one
yeah,
thing
and
here?
that's why I
So,
threw out the term freemium, is because if they're indeed allowing for free subscriptions for friends and family, but that's a portal to gaming where there are other business models for monetizing rather than a pure subscription, such as in-game sales and so forth. Isn't that in many ways parallel to the freemium model of getting market penetration and market share?
so can I?
I
Sorry, go
just
ahead,
one.
John.
It just one. No, just one last point is games lead tech. I'll just say that. So all these little monetization, cool things that you've seen, the things you're talking about, it's the gamers are the ones that lead that innovation, and the GameFly. I guess that's what Michael had mentioned. What was beautiful about that is it birthed the most valuable like subscription revenue back when they were just when they were mailing you the DVDs. I mean, literally, interactive TV was the ever emerging market of interactive TV, because there were waves of VC that were thrown into that in the 90s until the pivot of Netflix. Netflix was the first company to actually get it right. But yeah, so in any case, I'll drop the mic. I just wanted
Yeah.
to add
So
a few more.
just want to add an international perspective here. I don't know how many of you are aware, but in India,
Netflix is huge, but they also have a mobile only plan because in India, a lot of people watch on mobiles. They may not have the laptop or they may not have the Wi-Fi at home, but we have Geo and we have 4G or 3G network. So they actually have a mobile only plan, and that's under $3 a month. So it's huge. They're already getting access to the mobile user and mobile gaming platforms.
Mhm.
And by the way, as I
Just
pointed out like a
okay.
couple hours ago, Netflix internationally actually grew. So when we're talking about losing subscribers, that's just U.S. and Canada, and those are things to always be careful about. That you're comparing apples and oranges on these things. Even with Disney Plus, but or Disney, when they reported the numbers for Black Widow, they reported on the one time $30 thing. That was just a domestic number. Okay, but assuming the box office number of the 80 million or the whatever came in the box office was U.S. and Canada domestic, but the number of people that they who had bought it through the streaming was an international number. So you have to always look at that because they're reporting both numbers and people conflate sometimes.
One thing to add into that was that when we came to Ethiopia, we tried to use our existing account in the US or even try to create a new one. And it tells us that Netflix is not in the country that we were in. And then we used VPN. And then it worked for about a month. And then I think they figured out what we were doing and it got shut down after a month. So that was the interesting part for me, how they are trying to get international, but they also control it if people are trying to get it illegally.
Okay, let's go on to the next big headline. So we've only covered the first big headline of the day. Here goes headline number 2. Here we go. Researchers detail 2 new local privilege escalation vulnerabilities, one in recent builds of Windows 10, and the preview of upcoming Windows 11 already has a vulnerability. And Windows has got to get on top of this because it's going to get ugly. So, number 3, members belonging to 10 prime ministers, 3 presidents, and a king. Sounds like the beginning of a song or something. 10 prime ministers, 3 presidents, and a king all walk into a bar and all got their phones hacked. And they are among the list of 50,000 potential NSO targets, the Pegasus victims, Pegasus Gate, as it will forever be known. And now what's happening is all of the journalists around the world all took notice about 24 hours ago about a list of 50,000 numbers that have had their phones hacked, basically. And they knew this was deep shit because they were on the list and they had been hacked. And then they realized, shit, this is one of the biggest news stories of the year. Our phones have been hacked. We're journalists who hacked us. And then they broke up into their respective geographies. And they said, okay, you, the top journalists in the U.S., you do the assessment and analysis of who has been hacked in the U.S. You here in the U.K. do the same. India do the same, yada, yada, yada. And now we're starting to see who's been hacked. And that's why this headline today is right on time, as predicted. And we've now got a list of, again, 10 prime ministers, 3 presidents, and a king. And when we say hacked, they got hacked, we mean they got really fucking hacked. Like everything on their phone is completely transparently visible. Even when they type a message to somebody and don't send it, even that is seen. So those nasty comments that when you want to respond to some asshole and you say, go fuck yourself, and then you don't send it, and then you delete it because you're not a psychopath, and then you send the nice message that says, actually, maybe we should talk about this next week at the next meeting, and you say that's the message you actually send. Well, the hackers can see that what you really thought of that person. And so when we say you were hacked, they can see your thoughts because they're seeing what you really wanted to respond to people, even if you didn't send it. So
I'm thinking twice about all those messages you sent me, Tyler. Like, what was the original message?
yeah. So, well, you can just pay $10 million to
Hey,
Israel and get Pegasus, and then you'll know.
yeah, that's one
So,
way.
Tyler,
on.
on those, on
Yes.
this security though, this is gonna. I just listened to the New York Times on this, and they're equating cybersecurity to the beginning of our next Cold War, and that's why we're using diplomacy versus some more serious sanctions, et cetera. But as to Pegasus Gate, big story of the year, I will bet by the end of the year, it's a little story. I'll bet there's a lot more going on.
Oh yeah, that
I mean, this is
just
taking
getting
off.
started.
So,
This
yep,
is
yep.
the opening act of the political kabuki, as, as somebody said earlier.
Wait until somebody hacks the files that include Lindsey Graham's cell phone and everyone else that might be contained in that particular file set.
Oh, people are going
They're
down.
pretty sure they already have. They already have. It's just whether when they're going to use them, and that's the thing is they're going from this big sweeps to now and causing chaos to more targeted. Getting data beyond IP, getting actual.
You want this is a big deal when 10 prime ministers are now named. 3 presidents and a king have all been named as victims of this hack. It's confirmed that their phones are completely open to other governments, right? And yet, not a single American politician has said a single word about this.
The
That's
hack
what's
I
What do
was
you
referring
think?
to,
Why do
the
you
hack I
think
was
that
referring to
is?
is
huh?
sorry.
No,
Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was thinking, why do you think that is? Is that because they know there is some kind of compromising data that
Because
they
they know
have
they've been
on
hacked
them?
themselves, and they know they have dick pics on their phone, and they know if they say anything wrong against Israel, they know if they say anything wrong against Israel, it's off with their head.
Can you imagine though? The
They
hack I
need
was referring to is the hack of the hack. So wait till WikiLeaks publish in mass the hacked information.
Yeah, one of the interesting questions to ask is how did this list of 50,000 get into the hands of these journalists? And the kind of conspiracy theory kids in the class have an idea of how this happened, because John McAfee, who passed away, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, gave a prediction that if he were to get killed and hacked, he even said, if I get whacked, there will be a revelation of a data dump, the likes of which the world's not seen before. And this could be it. Because he said, he set up something where if he's not alive to be able to stop something, meaning he dies, there's already this ball in motion. Only he can stop it, but if he's dead, he can't stop it. And maybe this is the ball now in motion. This list of 50,000 that has been given to these journalists.
Tyler, how are American leaders going to say anything about it when the United States government's probably using it itself to
No,
spy on
no.
other world leaders?
Correction in that case. They probably have, essentially Pegasus is figured out a way into the iPhone in a way that Apple themselves don't know how they're doing it, right? And by the way, Apple has known about Pegasus since for at least 5 years. And in fact, John McAfee was one of the first people to even mention the word Pegasus 5 years ago. And he became aware of it, and he did a blog post 5 years ago about it. And so he's been very interested about it, and he's likely was himself hacked. And he was probably one of the first people to realize that he himself was hacked. And he, being, quite an elite cybersecurity expert, or having one of the largest companies at that time, probably spent a considerable amount of resources to learn as much about it as possible. And that might be why he has the list of the 50,000. So here's the point, though, is that Pegasus figured out how to get into an iPhone and an Android phone with a backdoor. And America probably has also found, Pegasus is probably not the only team on the planet that has found that backdoor. America probably also has as well. And they have their own version of Pegasus, so they wouldn't need to buy Pegasus. And how do we know that? Here's why. Because our friend who was with us earlier, Ken, who you met, Charles, was also hacked by Pegasus, and in a very clear-cut case, because he co-founded a startup called Clearview AI, which is a technology that the American government was very interested in, and the Israeli government was also very interested in, particularly because Israel has several very awesome technologies, Pegasus being only one of them. What's the AnyVision is also an incredibly important innovation out of Israel that the state is very interested in, which is facial recognition. And so, and by the way, China has one called SenseTime. Russia has one called PimEyes. And these are facial recognition databases. And facial recognition databases are incredibly powerful because if you're a police station or an intelligence agency for a government, and you're given a photo or a piece of video of an individual without their name, you want to know who that is. And you see a video of somebody, doing something nasty in one of your cities, you want to know who that person is based on nothing but the video of their face. Well, to a government and to a police department, that's insanely valuable tool. And it exists. And every country's building it separately. The ones who have the technical capabilities to do that, and the Chinese did. They call it SenseTime, and it works incredibly well. There's reports of them catching bad guys at soccer arenas of 60,000 people, and bad guy walks in, the camera see his face, sends off an alarm, the police go in and arrest him in real time. So police stations, we've also had headlines in the US where BuzzFeed is saying, here's a report of all of the US agencies that are using the American facial recognition system, which is Clearview AI, which our friend Charles is the co-founder. And by the way, Charles will be the first to tell you that BuzzFeed's list of the agencies that are using Clearview, where they name the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, half the police departments on the planet in the U.S., and 50 other agencies, the IRS, yada yada yada. They list 30 of them, and Charles says, no, they all use it, all of them, every single fucking one of them. They would be crazy not to. It would almost be immoral as a police department not to use it when you have a video of a killer with a knife, and now you're hoping to go to the crime scene and get DNA, when all you have to do is use this tool and look at his face, and it's a facial recognition search engine. You just put in the photo, boom, now it tells you if that person's face has ever been on the internet before. Boom, there's every web page where that person's face ever appeared before, and now you can catch that thief. So thousands and thousands and thousands of bad guys are getting arrested every day in America due to this facial recognition database. Now, in countries where they're not so friendly to their minority groups, or you've got authoritarian type regimes that are cracking down on things, that could be very dangerous in the wrong hands, right? And it could be dangerous anywhere, but it's a particularly dangerous.
Pegasus, because Pegasus made it available to many more, this type of technology available to many more countries, right, than people realized had it.
So here's I got off track. My point is that Charles made Clearview, the facial recognition engine for America. Israel has their own called AnyVision. Israel wants AnyVision to be the leading facial recognition system for the planet, right? You can understand why, right? You've got enough brain cells to figure that out, right? You know why Israel wants to have the whole world using their facial recognition system. And by the way, China would love the whole world to use their system, but the world's smart enough to be like, hell no, we're not using the Chinese one. No one's using the Chinese one because they have more than 2 brain cells. So they're using the American one, which is Clearview. And Israel's like, well, we're friendly, we're allies. You could use Clearview. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So Clearview has Israel also has Pegasus. So guess what they did? They used Pegasus on Charles, who is Clearview. And they wanted to know Clearview's client list, who's using Clearview. And they want to know who's using Clearview so that they can have a phone call and say, hey, we see you're using Clearview. Why don't you use our service instead? So Charles was hacked by Pegasus, and he was very early on, years ago. And he went to the FBI and the CIA and said, hey, I think I've been hacked by the Israelis. And they looked at his phone and said, yes, you have. That's Pegasus. And we don't need it. We have our own alternative. But let's find out who else has been hacked. Now that you're the first person in the US to bring it forward and show it to us, and now we can deconstruct it, learned a lot about it, and now we can hopefully figure out who else has been hit by this in the US.
But Tyler, keep in mind both Pegasus and Clearview are private companies,
yes.
So they may have decided to go spy on each other, industrial espionage, because they're competing. It's not like necessarily state actors like the U.S. versus Israel.
Correct.
It's because they're 2 private companies.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're private companies that governments have a very keen interest in. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So that's why they exist in different countries. And they want that degree of separation between the state and this technology. I've been saying this now for weeks, that there are several technologies that states want. They know they want. I can tell you one right now. Governments want DNA databases, but they don't want to keep it themselves. That's political dynamite. Except with the exception of China, who's practically public about the fact that they have a DNA database. It's been very publicly exposed by the New York Times, etc., that they're doing DNA testing on everybody all the time. Everybody, anyone who enters China, they do a nose swab test. And you have the Beijing Games coming up in 1 year, the Winter Games in Beijing. And you're going to have all the world's best athletes showing up in Beijing. And Beijing's doing DNA testing on everybody. You don't think they're going to take the DNA samples of those athletes? You don't think they're going to sweep the gold medals of all the Olympics henceforward after they figure out how to do that? So the point is Charles got hacked by Pegasus. He told the FBI, NSA. They figured out other people that had been hacked, and he says that he actually knows. So he has his own separate list, in part working with the NSA and the FBI, where they did figure out some of the other key people who have been hacked. And he's hinting and winking here the past 2 days. If you joined us, you heard him wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Watch what happens to Elon Musk now. Look what happens to Palmer Luckey now. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Watch what's going to happen to some of the biggest VCs in all of Silicon Valley who were taking money from Russian oligarchs. And what was the source of that money? Don't worry about that, my friend. Just know that they put in the money and then they got out a bunch of shares. Right? And just know they cashed out. It was essentially very clever money laundering on a very large scale. So it's going to get wild. And we know it's going to get wild because already in the past 24 hours in India alone, it was revealed that the prime minister's political opponents were hacked with Pegasus. And now they are saying that this is, what's the word? Not, what do you call it? Treason is the word that they're using against Modi now. You've committed treason. You've broken our democracy. You have this tool, which is a complete unfair tool in this political fight between, different parties, when one party's got a nuclear bomb and you got a butter knife. And no wonder you've, in this era of, these strongmen types that are around the planet right now, and you've got the guy in the Philippines who's a bit of a strongman character. The guy in Hungary is a bit of a strongman character. God damn, Russia's got a strongman character problem. China's got a bit of one. The U.S. had a bit of one, in all fairness. There's a lot. There's a whole bunch of them. And Turkey certainly got one. And these guys love things like Pegasus because they can neutralize their political adversaries and keep their position forever. Because anyone who tries to run against them, oh, what do you know? You were fucking your wife. There you go. Here you go, journalists. Have fun with that story.
So when it first started, right, Pegasus used the WhatsApp exploit, and that's how the Mexican journalist,
By the way,
was captured.
Netanyahu has also been accused of being a bit of a strongman type. Just to be fair, go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Sure. And so that was in 2017, right? Was the Mexican journalist. And then soon after that, there was a real massive investment in the spyware market. And the first people that invested in it were Saudi, UAE, Oman, and Bahrain. And that's when a lot of money flowed into the NSO, and then NSO also sold part of that as part of their export licenses. But if you look at this, the objectives of each of those countries are quite different. So India has a different objective. UAE had a very different objective. UAE, for instance, I mean, one of the first people that they captured and brought back was, do you remember the princess that escaped in 2018?
I don't.
And there was there was a celebrated case of a princess, and she was in captive by the prince, basically, and she made a bid for escape, and there was a really very good panorama program about the princess bid for escape, and she escapes, but then she gets captured again, using really very good technology, and brought back again to the UAE. And then we have all sorts of other cases that proliferate after that, and of course quite a lot of blood all over the show.
Okay, so this will continue to shake out in a very big way. Although I did not yet name the names that are now public: Emmanuel Macron, French president, and 13 heads of state and heads of government. The Guardian can reveal: South African president, the Pakistani prime minister, also listed in the data, which includes diplomats, military chiefs, senior politicians from 34 countries. Oh, here we go. Here's the list. South African president, Emmanuel Macron, French president, the World Health Organization director, Saad Hariri, the guy who just resigned as the prime minister of Lebanon last week, which we covered very briefly here, the president of the European Council, the King of Monaco, Morocco's prime minister, the prime minister of Pakistan, we mentioned, and the former president of Mexico, and the longtime American diplomat who was chief negotiator on the U.S.-Iran deal. Now, looking at those names, I notice an interesting connection in some of them. Here's what I notice in connecting some of them. Just my own crazy mind trying to connect patterns out of chaos. So some of the names that jumped out was and some of the surprising ones. Emmanuel Macron makes perfect sense. One of the world's biggest leaders. Not a surprise to me that somebody would try and hack his phone. Some of the bigger ones, president of Mexico, yeah, I could see him being hit. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I can see that. But the prime minister of Lebanon, Lebanon was that is not an important country by anybody's measure. If you're looking at the top, 200 countries on the planet, that ain't in the top 100. So
well, geopolitically, it is
sure.
In terms of West. Yeah.
From Israel's perspective, it's in the top 5. So it's its neighbor to the north, by the way. So hold that thought. You're kind of stealing my show here. So, and then you had Pakistan as well, not one of the top countries. Yeah, actually, Pakistan is quite big. But the fact that you have the chief negotiator of the U.S.-Iran deal, that is of tremendous importance to Israel. Matter of fact, that might be more important than Joe Biden himself, actually. So that is a bit of a smoking gun that particular Robert Malley, the chief negotiator of the U.S.-Iran deal's phone was hacked, because Israel wants to know what's happening in that conversation more than any conversation on the planet. More than Joe Biden, more than Vladimir Putin, more than Xi Jinping himself. They want Robert Malley's phone hacked, and his phone was hacked. What a coincidence. So, and the prime minister of Lebanon. Now, here's another interesting connection, is you have Lebanon's prime minister. You also had South Africa's president. South Africa is not in the top of the country list of importance, yet South Africa and Lebanon are both on this very short list of 10. And both of those countries are in complete apocalyptic fallout at the moment. Complete and utter shitstorm, dumpster fire. It doesn't get much worse than what's happening in Lebanon and South Africa, where gangs are storming the country willy-nilly with machine guns, looting everything willy-nilly. That's what's happening right now as we speak in South Africa and in Lebanon, right? Shit is hitting the fan full force. It doesn't get worse. What an interesting coincidence that the leaders of two out of these 10 are countries that are now in complete shitstorms. Interesting. So, I don't think I would want to be on this list, but nonetheless, we could all very easily be on this list. We have no choice about it. And by the way, Apple's not said diddly bop about this yet. Not a peep. Except
Hey, Tyler, remember
Yeah.
when Trump had that big controversy over use of his personal phone? He wouldn't use the hardened, presidential mobile phone, but he used his own to tweet. Can you just imagine the implications looking back if his personal phone had been compromised?
Well, somebody said, "What about BlackBerry?" It's like that. I remember when, who was it? There was somebody. It was Obama or Clinton or somebody.
Obama had his BlackBerry taken away,
Right. That's what it
And
was.
Trump was going to have his phone taken away, but he protested because he wanted to
Right.
tweet from it and maybe
Right.
do other things. I don't know how that played out, but I
Yeah.
can only imagine, if that phone was compromised with Pegasus or something.
Right. It's so wild. It's shit's gonna
But
hit the
wait,
fan.
Apple did make a statement. You want to hear their statement? They made it a couple of days ago.
Yeah, they made this tiny little. We make the strongest, the
Well, I
best
know.
phone on the planet, or whatever. Yeah.
No, no, it didn't say. No, actually, they didn't say that so much. What they said was that this is a very expensive spyware, and it costs millions of dollars to develop. It has a short shelf life, supposedly, meaning they're claiming, which I don't agree with, based on what we know, that as they do iOS updates, that they catch up with it, but they really haven't. But then they said used to target specific individuals. So basically, they're trying to calm the general public that your spouse that you're about to divorce doesn't have Pegasus. It's just these countries that have Pegasus that are eavesdropping on prime ministers and stuff. Not a concern for most people.
That's a
That's really kind of what you're saying.
decent point, but yeah,
It
yeah. The
it
point is, hey, you're nobody, so don't worry about it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it was quite interesting for me as well that Trump actually, who kept his phone, also refused to divest, which most presidents do. And now it might be interesting if somebody found out that he was mixing business with being the president of.
Yeah. So we've got. What did we do here? What do we got? I'm multitasking. So now we're on the NSO Pegasus thing for the second day in a row. Drop juicy fruit. Force companies that transfer Bitcoin or other crypto assets to collect details of the recipients and the senders. Ouch. If you were a decentralized fan, that's the opposite of decentralized. That is centralized up and down and left and right and all up your back end, and they know everything now. And they make a really decent point about it, which is they're treating it more like bank transfers, essentially. And bank transfers, they know who sent it and who received it. So why shouldn't we do the same with these cryptos? Well, they kind of have a point there, but it's exactly, the opposite is kind of a death nail within the EU with regard to, the ability to have a decentralized type plan. So now it essentially makes the decentralized folks who want decentralized um, currency outside of the hands of the government, outside of the hands of the banking system, outside of the hands of the federal banks and central banks. It's going to make that a more kind of um, extremist type thing. And because now, if the EU Commission makes it a law that you have to do this, now running decentralized is really against the law in the EU. That's the problem. Where it's not against the law at the moment to be decentralized in most of the world. And now they're going to start making it illegal to run something outside of their control, essentially. Ben, or if Nicholas, is there anyone else from the crypto space, or Ame, anybody want to comment on that? Because we do have in 3 hours, Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk are going to sit down side by side and do a live conversation, which we're going to live stream. And and the whole conversation is about Bitcoin. And it's at an event they call the B word. And it appears Jack Dorsey does want to enable decentralized. And that's going to be very interesting, especially if it becomes illegal to run decentralized crypto as in the EU. What if the US does the same? So it's going to get hot. It's going to get real hot. So, and you're going to see the price of Bitcoin go a little bit nutty, likely to make some big moves one way or another as a result of this news and that interview that's coming up in 3 hours. So tomorrow's going to be an interesting day for crypto geeks. Did Ben jump up? No. Ame, what are your thoughts on the EU Commission proposed a new law that would force companies that transfer Bitcoin or other crypto assets to collect details of recipients and senders?
Where is that coming from? What's the source
The
of the
BBC,
report?
CNET, ZDNet, the European Commission itself, and Reuters.
Yeah, I think it'll take them. I think it will take them a time to do it.
Yeah, they said it's
Because
going to take them as long. It could
what
take
do
as
they
long as
say?
2 years. They said.
Well, it's exactly, I think, what I shared the other day, right? I shared that the Dutch, they're already talking about that they're going to have it done by 2024, 2025. So it's the same. The key right now is, of course, it'll probably get done, but by the time it happens, most of the people that have wanted to do what they're going to do are going to be out. And at that point, it'll be regulated. So I think the main thing is that there's a lot of people in this space already. And I think this is really also trying to shake out what I was mentioning about like CZ Binance and what he's doing with the Binance exchange and
Yep.
how that's sort of really becoming a bit of a hot mess, right?
Yep.
And now you're also seeing that a lot of these firms are getting sort of shut down and regulated, which is in essence, there's going to be necessary regulation, right? But because they want to get the nefarious characters. But as with anything, a few rotten apples spoil it for the bunch. But for the bunch that have already been in here for the 4 or 5 year term, they're probably not going to be too overly stressed over that because you're being compliant and no one wants to piss off anyone you're gonna give taxes to. So, at the end of the day, I think they just want to know where it's coming from, where it's going. And they're going to be looking at the wallets. From what I've understood in the research I've done, they're looking at the wallets that are over like 100,000 or so in transactions. And and from Chainalyst perspective, they look for the large chunks. They look for the large transactions because the large transactions could be passed and they could be split and they could be moved around from different wallets. And that's actually basically, not to say this is how it's being done, but if you launder money, what do? You basically break apart the money, right? And you pass it through in certain ways. So when I was studying for Chainalyst, that's exactly what we look for. We look for where large chunks of money has been split and watching the wallets that it's been split to, and then watching the train of the wallets, and if there's some sort of convergence of wallets on the other side. So that's kind of just how you would follow the trail, right?
Yep.
You want to see if they break apart the wallets, and then you want to see those wallet addresses. It's like Casa de Papel. You watch where it goes, and then you see where they split up, and then you watch where they end up reconvening in some way. Because most of the time, you'll see at the end someone will get sloppy, and someone will be like, okay, well, no one's chasing us now, or no one's looking for us, and then they get sloppy. And
Okay.
then, bam, that's where the FBI
I
jumps in.
just noticed our dear friend David Chang is back. Welcome back,
David.
David. Good to see you.
David, we've missed
Oh my
you.
God,
Hi guys.
David.
It's like
Wow.
Cheers. It's like
Welcome
Norm. He's
home,
Norm.
David.
So, David, what's your take on the EU saying they want a new proposed law that would force companies that transfer Bitcoin or other crypto assets to collect details of recipients and senders?
It's funny you mentioned this. So I'm actually in Miami at the Mining Disrupt conference right now. Um, so I'm not directly involved in this, but I I'm privy to, I guess, what's going on behind the scenes, which is one of the biggest cross-flow of traffic um, in the online gambling industry between Asia and Europe is facilitated by cryptocurrency. So as
Do
as
tell,
most
David. Do tell.
as most of you know, I think I mean I guess I'm Asian, so I can say this. Most Asians in general are highly speculative and
Oh my
love
God,
to
just say it,
gamble.
David. The Asians love to gamble because they are always the ones at the tables in Holland Casino in Netherlands. They drop like 1,000, 2,000 at the
Well,
table. They love
I
gambling.
can quantify it for you, David. A little town in Cambodia is currently simultaneously building 100 casinos to be the next
Are you talking
Macau
about
or Las Vegas.
Sihanoukville?
Yes, I am talking about Sihanoukville.
Okay. So that was one of Xi Jinping's big gift to the Cambodians before COVID. Xi Jinping went to Cambodia and said, "We will now offer 6 direct flights daily between China and Sihanoukville." Right? It's like I'm sending you gamblers from China.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, but during COVID, because obviously traveling has become very difficult, we've seen a significant spike in online gaming, and part of that is so that's really comes down to two major categories. One is sports books, and then one is online casinos. So the thing that makes this very interesting is in the UK, you can legally operate both casinos, brick and mortar casinos, and online casinos. And the UK has probably some of the most listed online gaming platforms, right? So, um, one of the big sportsbook ones is called Bet365, Diane Coates and her family. So we actually see quite a bit of traffic moving through cryptocurrency and landing back into the EU and UK for online gaming. So I think a lot of that EU policy is to give government more regulatory abilities to track and trace um, a lot of these funds, right? Because for a long time, the UK's listed companies have acted as a almost as a bottle washer and some form of legitimacy to online gaming, and the legitimacy is intact because they can hide all of the transactions through crypto in the background. But I suppose the EU's new measure will further crack down on that.
Awesome
But whether or
insight.
not that's but
Yeah.
whether or not that's for the better is really hard to say, right? Because I mean, when the economy is as dead as it is during the pandemic, perhaps something like this can give it a little more stimulation.
David, on the
Is
just
this
what do you see Gibraltar in some of the in this, because they're a little bit out of the jurisdiction of the EU, and I know there's a lot of online gaming activity there. A couple of activist
Malta, very
shareholders I got
specifically. Yeah.
involved in.
Jib and
Yeah,
Malta both.
Believe it or
it,
not, the new popular one that again without self-incrimination that I see actual money transfer activity to that's probably the most popular now is the Isle of Man. Gibraltar and Malta not so much anymore. Malta is sort of how do I say this? We have this expression in Chinese meaning the black eats the black. It means like even because you are in a compromised position, you'll get screwed over by the person who you think is trying to provide you a safety coverage. So Malta gives people that feeling when they're operating out of there. It's not uncommon for crypto folks to get shaken down there. In fact, CZ from Binance had that problem back in 2018 when he had to flee China temporarily. He would first went to Japan, and then I think he wanted to get landed in Malta, and then he realized that the Maltese government was taking advantage of the situation too much. So anyway, most of the gaming developers that we're looking at now that are receiving payments as sort of IT payment transactions, but really sort of gaming revenues, are actually doing that in the Isle of Man in the UK.
Cool.
Malta is definitely the gangster haven these days. That's what I always say. Like if they took your money, then they fled to Malta. Is there any sort of activity on Macau at all with gamers, or not so much?
There's always been a lot of activity in Macau, but I think we've certainly seen a decrease um, because of all the regulations coming from Beijing. Um, so what I see now in Macau more is providing facilities to money movement for the gaming platforms. Um, and in addition to crypto, which is now more heavily regulated in China, the thing that I think I personally see, and again, that maybe only represents a small portion of the overall picture, is because both Hong Kong and Macau are effectively tax-free harbors. Um, we see daily movement of using things like gold, watches, and jewelry as the medium for transport of value of wealth. Um, and then that the same the same Rolex probably goes between China and the Macanese border like 8 times a day. Um,
Wow.
as a medium for transporting the money, right? Um, So that's what I see now more in Macau.
Aren't
So
they
money.
starting? They're starting to pay closer attention to the movement of gold, if I read a headline correctly.
That's
I can
right. That's
imagine
right.
all those watches that they're wearing going through the airport. It's like, wow, you're really well dressed. Wait, I've seen a lot of people dressed like that today.
I like the
Well,
guy with the kind of cut off shorts and flip flops and and $100,000 watch. It's always a good look.
exactly. But they have the ability to go back and forth, the same guys, multiple times a day, right? And then if you're just wearing your own watch, it's not really flagged. So anyway, so this is what I'm seeing more now, because the actual gaming activity, that's much easier to monitor by the government, whereas free passage of going back and forth.
He got a phone call. Okay, so the next big story is welcome back, Chris. By the way, Google Maps expands what they call their crowd predictions to 10,000 transit agencies in 100 countries, and will show how crowded individual carriages are in New York City and Sydney. And now they're telling you which car on the subway train is the most full and the least full, and that is fantastic. So now you know which part of the
Um,
train to jump into. Yeah.
Okay,
for
all
New
right, just
York, it's the one that a homeless person is living in. That's the least crowded one.
Yeah.
right. All right, so they've got like 18. I actually looked at this very recently for where to get their data sources on this. A lot originally is like many things with Google is like one of the engineers was tired of like doing commute distances, and he's like, all right, I'm going to do my 20% time. Back when that used to be a thing. But the thing that was interesting is the transportation planning software for this. There's like 18 or so different like city municipal versions. A lot of them are very old. And what they did is they said, we'll be aggregator for all this and we can provide your civic data back to you. The thing that's interesting about this is many city governments could actually insist on the original vendors for a lot of these software things for having this sort of COVID planning things, but they haven't, which I find is more shocking because what this means is essentially this now means that Google's taking on more functions of civic government as it goes to more and more places, which says, oh yeah, we know your health department data better than you do, kind of like. That starts to get like, over time, that's going to be like really weird.
Yeah. Faraz, are you in the room? Is Faraz on stage? He just sent in. Yes, he is. Faraz, what's up with the DM you just sent me? Should we mention it or not? We'll come back to it later. We'll come back to it later. Okay. So let's just do one more cursory glance of Twitter begins rolling out a revamped version of TweetDeck. And if you want to know how to get on the invite list for that, you need to go to Jane Wong's Twitter feed where she shows you some little code she found that you can enter into your browser to reset your cookie so that you'll qualify to download the new version of TweetDeck from Twitter. Zoom says that their Zoom App Store and its virtual events service called Zoom Events are now generally available with 50 apps available in the Zoom App Store, including Asana and Dropbox and others. And that's really cool. And this was predicted by me long before Tech News Around the World ever started. Conversations friends and I used to have when Zoom started taking off, just as the pandemic was starting, which it became very obvious that was an incredibly obvious trade to make, was to invest in Zoom as the pandemic was starting. And the question was, how long will it be before Zoom has its own app store? Because you could add all kinds of really amazing integrations into Zoom with Dropbox, with all kinds of apps, and they need their own app store, and they need to become their own live event platform because Hopin is worth a ton of money now, their competitor in the live in space. And Zoom could very easily, and I'm still confused why they don't, have their own hallway of Zoom rooms that you could jump into Zoom conversations as a listener. And if the people in the Zoom call want to bring you into the call, they could. And it could be a video version of Clubhouse very easily because they have tens of thousands of Zoom calls going on simultaneously. In some of those rooms, they wouldn't care to, they might want more publicity and be listed in a public hallway of Zoom rooms that allow people to come
I
in.
mean, they still call themselves an enterprise company, including with the Five9 acquisition. So that's the main reason.
Yeah.
I
There's
think so.
also
Yeah,
there's
their
also Zoom
agreements are
buying
actually with the
alternatives away from
companies
that. Right.
themselves, so they don't have it's basically would be governed by what the companies want, and then they'd have to basically set up hallways for specific companies in specific rooms, as opposed to just saying companies come onto our platform. What they've done is created the platform for companies. So I think it would be with that, with the contract, with the contracts they have now, I think it would just be horribly complex for them to try and roll that out. But if those expire and they end up revising those so that people are essentially, whether you're enterprise or you are personal or whatever it is, if they end up revising it so essentially everybody's coming on with the same term sheet, then I think that's possible.
Okay,
Oh,
moving on.
something else is that early.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Chris.
go ahead.
What's up?
I was going to say their early struggles essentially with COVID scale outs was essentially, hey, Zoom bombing. People are randomly joining our thing and dropping porn in the chat kind of thing. Of we're using this for court sessions. This is going to be an issue. Is it secure? Yes, this isn't being hacked on a daily basis. So essentially, all the momentum where people are saying this thing is too open, there's too much, this is too uncontrollable, and there's not nearly enough controls on this. So everything that they were asking for was more like control factor, where I think Clubhouse has had a little bit of a benefit here with the pandemic, where they're like, yeah, let's open up a little bit more, and let's make this more easy to basically float in and out of places. All the forces acting business-wise on this particular operation are going fastest user growth possible. Zoom, they've been on the, holy crap, let's basically make sure we can basically monetize this train and not have it explode halfway through. So they've been kind of on the other side of the bandwagon of why they don't have the hallway. It's like, they can add it in, sure, but it goes directly against the early pandemic boosters that they had early on of yeah, let's make this a little bit more chaotic.
Okay, so here we go. Next big story from the Wall Street Journal. Crypto derivatives exchange called FTX raises $900 million from SoftBank and Sequoia. Those are two of the biggest names in tech investment, valuing it at $18 billion. They handle $10 billion of transactions per day. And let's see how it is tomorrow after this Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk live stream that's starting in a few hours. And
yeah, but they do, just to add in, they do a number of really interesting things outside of the U.S.
yeah,
They're trading fractional securities
yep,
out of both Europe and I believe Bermuda.
yep.
And they're young, dynamic. The CEO is 29 years old. They're a really interesting company to watch.
Yeah, indeed. 18 billion valuation, which SoftBank has a reputation for supporting high valuation startups, but even for them, that's quite high. So Bolt offers a one-click checkout service, raises $333 million at a $4 billion valuation. Again, a super young founder at a $4 billion valuation, nearly 5 times its December valuation, growing incredibly. And I woulda, coulda, shoulda invested if I wasn't an advisor to their competitor, who isn't growing nearly as fast. But they've really captured it. They make it one-click checkout basically everywhere for e-commerce, and that's going to become insanely valuable as we switch to social commerce, and even more valuable when we go into AR and VR commerce. You're going to want a one-click checkout when you buy things in AR and VR and in social media. So it's going to be a massive company. Instagram is testing a new feature called Collab in India and the UK that lets users invite a public account as a collaborator on a post or a reel. So now two people can co-create a post. I just heard Chris blow his own mind. I know.
They added a user field permission. This is international news because of the whole influencer economy. That's literally the entire business model. Is you can say, well, we'll let a corporate sponsor do this or this or that, and we'll share the account details. They're changing the admin login screen, and this is international news because it affects billions of people. This is nuts that we're at a level of scale here in tech centralization where you change a protocol with who gets logins. Everything changes.
So Biden nominates Jonathan Cantor, longtime foe of Google, to become the Department of Justice antitrust chief. And Cantor has represented Microsoft and Yelp in anti-Google lawsuits. And now he's going to be running the Department of Justice antitrust chief position against Google. And he clearly is no fan of Google, and I'm no doubt Google's going to ask him to recuse himself. Go ahead, Johan.
The thing is here that we've probably been no bias in his point of opinion from the beginning. None at all.
No, but now you've got the Lena Khan, the chair of the FTC, is very outwardly outspoken about her disdain for Amazon. And now you've got Jonathan as the Department of Justice antitrust chief, who's outwardly outspoken about not being a fan of Google. And that's sort of the 1-2 punch. So clearly Biden is not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk with these appointments, but let's see how it all shakes out, because I don't rule out these tech companies. They got some fantastic lawyers. So let's see what happens in that showdown. It's going to be quite the...
Another thing there. What is this with American presidents and these Google, Apple, Facebook, and the other ones? Why do they hate them so much? Both of them are now drawing the string on the bow to fire at them. Both of them simultaneously. Will they join forces, perhaps?
Johan, you sound like you're on like a little children's plastic microphone or something.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
He probably paid $1,000 for it.
Yeah, I really hope not. It sounds like
Arby phone.
Yeah.
There we go.
Can you make that comment again?
Now, I will say it was a fun comment about Trump also being on the roll on them. It was I tried to be funny. I will stop trying to do that. You went done.
Okay, so your point is that this is all happening now under Biden because Trump was paid off by the tech? Perhaps.
Or that actually Trump is also drawing a string on the bow to go after them since he did get banned. And now the new president is also going after them. Might it be that there's something ill in the system that both presidents feel like they need to hurt him?
So, Soldo, which develops an automated expense management system for business, screw that one. Core Science says the biggest Bitcoin mining company in the U.S. says it will go public via a SPAC. Well, that's interesting. So you can invest now very directly in the biggest Bitcoin mining company in the U.S. David, if he's still with us, is he off the phone? Did he have to jump out? That's unfortunate. David was involved in the largest Bitcoin mining operations in China that are now moving to the U.S. and notably in Texas. Ooh. So that would have been interesting to hear his perspective on that. And then an ed tech company, an Armenia-based company called Solo Learn, offers an app to learn coding. That's awesome. We need more coding learning apps to get young people as early as possible and at all stages learning in a really cool way. They raised $24 million. And HBO Max partners with Snapchat as these platforms like Netflix now want to become more like TikTok, and TikTok wants to become more like YouTube, and YouTube wants to be like TikTok, and YouTube wants to be like Netflix, and Netflix wants to be like TikTok. They all want to be omni-channel. They want to have the short form media, which is the 1 minute, 2 minute videos. They want to have the medium form videos, which is the 8 to 10, 20 minute videos. And they all want to have the long form traditional movie format, 90 minute, 2-3 hour videos. So they all want to have it. And
we're just recreating TV.
Yeah. So
television.
Yep. But the idea of partnering between them is really interesting. Like if TikTok partners with Netflix, that could be kind of crazy. Anyway, but HBO is partnering with Snapchat. So, and then that's it for what we call the big boring stories. And now we're going to get more into the actually interesting stories from around the world, geographically and professionally. So if anyone want to kick it off before I go into my incredibly long list of stories, the most interesting stories. Going once. Going twice. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Delivery startup Joker gets $170 million to grow the grocery store delivery boom. 15-minute delivery is becoming the standard now in most metropolitan cities, and Joker, Jokr, raises $170 million to fuel its expansion across America and Europe after rolling out its service in select cities. And it's on. The race is on to deliver everything in 15 minutes or less. GM, General Motors, the American car mega company, planning an electric GMC pickup as part of its $35 billion EV push. So the electric truck race is on, kickstarted by Elon Musk with the Cybertruck, which I'm still waiting for mine. And Then you have Rivian, which is a partnership with Amazon. And now you got GM, and you got the Ford electric F-150s. The electric truck thing has got some gas in the tank, no pun intended, huh? So we got from Jesse, I think Jesse might be on stage. You shared one about Peloton plans to launch an in-app video game where you pedal to control a rolling wheel. And what's interesting about that is it's setting the stage for future kind of hybrid between video games and physical activities, where Peloton is a bicycle and a treadmill, and now there's a gaming component to it. And you could see they started with the hardware of the treadmill and the bike, and now there's a big screen, and now there's content on the screen, and that's kind of like video game content on the screen of the hardware, which is the bike or the treadmill. But you will also soon see video games partnering with other hardware, other treadmills, other bikes, of which there's tons of bike companies and treadmill companies, and making collaborations because they don't want to get into the business of treadmills and bikes necessarily. But you're starting to see this interesting hybridization of video games and VR and physical behaviors, and it's going to become very interesting indeed.
Tyler.
Yeah.
Hey, I actually know that whole Peloton team because I've known one of my flywheel cycle guys was one of the first Peloton cyclists in New York on 23rd Street. So he was one of my trainers, but he was also one of my yoga students. And it's interesting because Peloton always had that bike, which is where it started, and it was super badass. And then also they have this sort of life coaching style in their teaching, very similar to Soul Cycle, very similar to Flywheel. And I think what's really interesting is what you just said. Granted, these gamifications or gamified screens, whether you're on a tread or you're on a cycle, I think it's going to be really fascinating because you're also going to be able to do social commerce in that as well for Cannondale, Gazelle, like all of the bike companies, all the treadmill companies, because they will be subliminally probably advertising inside of that game. And that game is actually a competitive game. Maybe they're in the Tour de France and they're like riding the bike in the Tour de France and they're part of a team. And then they probably would be able to do what Peloton was doing before, is that you could take a Peloton class at home and be connected to the class in the studio, which means you're actually taking the same classes inside the studio, except you're not physically in the studio. You're on your own Peloton bike, but you can see the screen where the teacher and the instructor's guiding you, but you're actually riding with the rest of the class, but you're not in the class. You're actually home. And that I think is going to be very interesting when you talk about gamification and being able to sort of really sell through it. I think it's going to be very, very interesting because you could advertise clothing, you could advertise cleats, you could advertise water bottles. I mean, you could do it all in there.
Yeah.
So they also just partnered with United Health Group, which is one of the largest insurance providers in the United States. And so their stocks have started to climb as a result of that as well. So to say that they're innovative is an understatement. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Just throwing
They're next. They're going to say they're going to only take CBDCs, right? They're going to take like the CBDCs with the insurance, and they're going to say, "Oh, you're not exercising enough. We're going to raise your rates," or "No, you can't buy that Twinkie because you didn't do your workout." I know it's very tinfoil hat, but this is the section of tinfoil hatting, so I can do this. But that's not awesome. I don't want my insurance company connected to my exercise coat rack, so that's not right.
Just throwing something out there. So from the video game perspective with things for in the VR community, when we were trying to establish new markets, finding which developers would actually be willing to partner with us at early stages. Almost every game company has their own internal, hey, let's do a few little demos or fun little experiments. It was interesting seeing which ones, like from the AA or even the AAA studios, which ones would actually dedicate actual resources for developing a platform with limited distribution. One thing that's unique about Peloton is because they have the subscription revenue, for them, essentially, if they've got, I don't know, like 7 channels or so for the workouts or so, if you view this on a business model wise, just one more content channel, almost like Netflix style or something, but just like, one more channel, as long as we have subscribers engaged, and they can measure that engagement, then they just compare it against, well, is this more or less expensive than paying for someone giving life coaching while they're doing the training classes? What's weird is that video game production costs have dropped low enough that actually, while there's a little bit of an initial thing to get like the APIs and like the internal things set up, and get the initial game developers and everything, long term actually that could work out pretty favorably. My own personal predictions. If this did become a video game platform, Ubisoft will be one of the first groups to make a fun little demo thing for it, and it'll actually be pretty good, freaking good. Rockstar Games would be the very last for any of them because they're like, if you can't basically push a few $1 billion worth of sales, they won't even they'll make an internal demo, but they'll never even release anything publicly. Like they literally will create entire franchises and just let them die internally because yeah, that's only a few 100 million customers. We need to up it. There are the different standards for how this business model works in video game industry is going to intersect really interestingly in there if they do go down that pathway. With Netflix essentially moving into gaming, you've got other groups moving into it. There's the Nintendo was saying we can't find any more hours in the day. We're competing against all that. There's no more hours. We've used every hour is monetized. And then COVID happened, and all of a sudden the market grew by 50%. So I mean, it's a weird sector. It'll be interesting to see if they can recover past the when lockdowns start coming back up again.
It's a difficult sector. I mean, so what you're saying is that the bike has emerged as a quasi viable platform. The
Right.
first time I saw games on bikes was 10 years ago at a CES. So Peloton and a couple others, it sounds like, has emerged to a large enough quote unquote installed base, possibly. But Chris is spot on in terms of the AAA studios, at least. On that end of the continuum, when they have a team that can go develop a new product, the cannibalization or the opportunity cost is the right word, to not do another sequel to one of their evergreen titles or something like that is so high that the math doesn't work. So when you go to the other side of the continuum, to the serious game studios and things like that, this could be a very interesting platform opportunity for them.
You want
Is
something
that
that's
is that
just
just
established. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that is that just me who's just really, really sick of just finding things to do more things at home. I really am looking forward to do things outside. I want to be just going back to the motivation, working out outside in a gym and other things. I mean, how many more video games, how many more Netflixes, how many more exercise at home are we gonna have? I personally am getting really tired of this. I know it's the COVID that's keeping us inside, but I can't wait to see another innovations that are just trying to get us outside.
No. You
That's
got
all I was gonna say.
don't get your hopes up. We got Delta coming, and that's the best thing ever for Clubhouse. So we've got other
Woo!
headlines to get. You're gonna see the Delta Clubhouse boom. So a division of NIH
Be
is
wary of Lambda.
wait till Lambda hits, and then that's when you really wish you were an investor in Clubhouse. So a
Clubhouse
division
basically becomes a $1 trillion company.
a division of NIH, the National Institute of Health, is recruiting for a study to investigate the long haul symptoms of COVID-19 and why certain populations experience them more than others. All that completely remotely with clinically reliable data capture and RPM platform. So thank you to Claudia for that one. Just shared that one out. And Pivot Bio is a new company, a startup, using microbes to replace synthetic fertilizer and raises $430 million. Doing microbes to replace synthetic fertilizer is huge. That's a huge opportunity, and that's a really amazing game-changing thing. It's potentially, I mean, the synthetic fertilizer, ground, soil erosion thing, like the degradation of soil, is starting to become a well-known issue. Like I keep jumping on the whole water issue, and hopefully people are starting to see it in the headlines how tragic the water situation is developing, and it's just starting. But so is the soil degradation issue, where due to synthetic fertilizers, we're killing the actual ground that we grow the food out of. And this startup, Pivot Bio, has found an alternative solution, which is using microbes instead of synthetic fertilizer, which could be an absolute fundamental necessary game changer to keep healthy food on our tables and in the supermarkets.
Agriculture industries typically are immune from pollution regulations, so the amount of runoff they have, they're not liable for. So Pivot Bio, if depending on who their investors are, they are one legislative rule change away from having a very large company with things. Because all you need to do is just introduce liability, and it's like, well, you need to have to be fair, normally they wait for there's 2 or 3 competitors in the general area to say, okay, this is a legitimate new industry thing. But that could spread really quick if essentially a policy change happened here or there.
Yep. Speaking of spreading really quick, COVID deaths rise by 96 in biggest daily jump since March. A 60% surge in the UK has had its highest coronavirus daily death toll since March 24th, with 96 dead in Britain from COVID, bringing the total to 128,000. And physicists say the universe wraps around itself like a giant donut. Scientists argue that the universe may be folded in on itself, looping together like a giant cosmic donut rather than expanding in all directions. So it's kind of like the flat earth of the universe. It's like a whole different shape. And now you could be a flat earther and a donut universer simultaneously. So Textron Aviation announces an order for up to 150 Cessna Grand Caravan X aircraft, which are these incredibly gorgeous, sexy. I've never seen a sexier looking airplane. It looks like a James Bond. If you ever had an airplane, this would be it. Accelerating electrified commercial travel. It's gorgeous hell. And I tweeted it out to the Tech News Twitter account. Thank you to Joe Williams for tweeting it in. And you can see it by going to TNATW, which is the Twitter account, the letters above my head and my photo. If you go there, follow the account, you will see this incredibly sexy airplane and every headline we've discussed so far today and the next 50, all the headlines we discuss, we're sharing in real time from the Twitter account. So it's like a second screen experience. So do follow there. And here's the next one that I'm sharing now. From The Independent in the UK, Trump aide says that the Trump campaign paid actors to appear in their 2016 audience when he made his initial announcement, his bid to run as a presidential candidate. The audience were paid actors, and that's now been revealed by a campaign aide. And you will soon see other headlines that lots of the people behind Trump at the rallies are actually paid actors. And then here's an interesting prediction that I'm just tweeting out now. Major terror attack using drones likely in Delhi before August 15th. So 3 weeks from now. The alert issued to the Delhi police warned of a major terror attack before Independence Day by drones. There we go. Drones now being used as terrorist attack, militarized. Wow. That's wild. We've talked here often about militarized drones and drones being used in the military and how that opens the door for terrorists to fight on borders where they have border skirmishes like Gaza, like Palestine, like lots of places. And this opens the door for major terrorist attack they're now expecting in Delhi before August
And
15th.
these kind of warnings have been tragic in the past, right? I mean, they in Mumbai and other places. So
Yeah.
this is I mean, like they have to be taken somewhat seriously by the authorities and by people.
Yep.
Tyler, the main reason is August 15th is Indian Independence Day, and it is 75th Independence Day. So that also connects to that. And it's a huge, unless there is no big breakout of COVID, it's always a huge event, and there are a lot of dignitaries over there. So that may be the reason.
Yeah. Well, no, the other reason is that it's a way to do a lot of damage without getting caught, because you have this, remote thing, that you could put a whole bunch of explosives on. This whole idea of, what was it? There used to be humans that had suicide bombers. Now you just have suicide drones, kamikaze drones. Oh my goodness. It's going to get wild.
Plus,
Also,
like the drones.
uh,
Monica?
Sorry.
Tyler, there has been also a lot of activity because of Afghanistan. I think we cannot discount the fact that what is going on in that territory is actually going to have ramifications. India has also always actually fought and helped Afghanistan fight back against Taliban. So this is not unexpected. In fact,
the last 3 years have been extremely bad, where this particular celebration is concerned. There was the Kashmir issue and the abrogation of Article 370, which happened in 2019. 2020, there was a similar warning because of the skirmishes on the border with China, and that is why there was an expectation that there would be some unrest that would happen because India had started unlocking after the first COVID wave had ended. And also we had skirmishes that were happening, and there was a lot of political activity back then, and now this. So it's been a series of the same kind of problems happening around the same time. And this time, I don't know why Afghanistan is not getting the kind of attention that it did get earlier, even in our newspapers here. But it's a pretty big issue. I don't think that anybody here would take it lightly, because the first and only impact would be terrorist activities that would definitely be felt in certain parts, which happened a couple of weeks ago because of that drone activity that you mentioned. So pretty scary stuff here.
Yeah, it's wild. Okay, so on to the next one. We've got the future of live events begins in the metaverse. Something we've actually somewhat predicted here previously, that this week Mixmaster Mike will perform physically on stage at a venue in LA while simultaneously being live as a hologram on a virtual stage in alt space. And indeed, that is the future, because it's going to bring far more visibility to musicians who are performing. And I predict, yes, you could do a live show, and that if you're on stage, that could also, as they say, be part of a metaverse VR experience where you can appear in a virtual stage. But I think what could also happen is people are going to be doing broadcasts from their own rehearsal spaces, where their bands will convert their rehearsal rooms into really engaging sound stages that can then be rebroadcast every day. If they rehearse once a day, as many bands do, then you could start to imagine, people could tune in to any rehearsal. They have a regular schedule. They rehearse every day at 5 p.m. and people could come in and pay to. They could have cameras all over the thing. They could engage with them and talk with them while they chat and everything. It could be a really interesting alternative to touring if Delta keeps going the way that it is. But let's hope that it doesn't. But this headline from Forbes, that the future of live events begins in the metaverse, is very much true. And I'll give you an example of this. Clubhouse. I'm an event producer. I produce very large conferences and festivals, even, which you can see in my bio. I have done for a decade. So the largest ones in Sweden and in Scandinavia. So the point is that I originally, with Clubhouse, me and my other conference and festival producers were a little concerned, because Clubhouse is kind of like going to a conference where you can hop from room to room and listen to people talk on stage. It's almost exactly like a conference, honestly. And it was many of my friends perceived that as a sort of a threat. And I've now realized that it's actually an incredible gift to anyone who wants to produce kind of an event or a conference or a panel, because if you want to host an event with speakers, it used to be a lot of work. You would have to get a venue, because you would need to have an audience and an amphitheater, kind of a seating arrangement, and a stage with a screen and the audio system. And that takes time to set up, and you're very limited in the number of venues you can choose in any city. So a city like Stockholm, you maybe have 24 choices of where you could host an event. And then even then it gets narrowed down based on other criteria. But then you have to pay for the video screen and the sound system and the text to do all that. And then you have to pay to rent the venue the day before the event to set up everything. And it gets very expensive very quickly to do traditional events in that way. Now, through the magic of Clubhouse, I could have an event in a forest with no sound technicians, with zero setup time. I just set up a bunch of logs for people to sit on if they even want to sit. I have a little stage of my speakers. So there's a live audience, there's live speakers, no microphones, no PA system. How's that going to work? I'm glad you asked. All the speakers on stage in this forest with the live audience, all the speakers are on Clubhouse. And we open a Clubhouse room. and they get on stage in the clubhouse room just like we are right now. So for all you know, me and Cal and Cheryl and JT and Mahogany and Messi and Ken are actually physically together in a forest in Sweden right now, and half of this audience is also there with us.
Cool.
And you wouldn't know. But
don't tell everyone.
I just let the cat out of the bag. But the beauty of this is now I just created a conference with no cost.
Girls love you.
Who loves me?
Oh, wait, you run one of these.
So it's
Hey Tyler,
but
this weekend also is Splendor XR in Sansar, which is
yes.
an Australian festival.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. It's a huge music event. So the future of events is really interesting because now people can do events anywhere. Anywhere is a venue. You could be on a cruise ship, and anywhere you'd be on a beach. It doesn't matter. So it gets very interesting. And the hardest part about getting good speakers at your event is
Yep.
it takes weeks and often months, and the very best speakers, who I'm very fortunate to have at my events regularly, often have to book a year in advance because Bill Gates' calendar is that busy. So in this case, when you're saying, can you just pop into a little audio call for 15 minutes? They can do that almost serendipitously. And now the quality of speaker that you can have at your events is far, 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 far higher and far, far, far cheaper. So we could bring in some really fantastic speakers. And in fact, we have, even without even really trying thus far. And indeed, we will continue to do so as Tech News Around the World grows. And I have some of my best speakers that have participated at my events over the years, who I will bring in when we get to the size and scale where it's relevant to them. So the point is that it used to be you need to fly in the speaker. They had to take 3 days out of their life to come speak at your event for an hour on stage. And that's a really big ask to take 3 days out of Bill Gates' schedule. Now you don't have to do that. We could do this, clubhouse style virtual hybrid conferences, which I'm super excited about. So anyway, that's
So
what
if
I
you
have.
had,
Tyler,
it's
may I
amazing.
pop?
If you had people that were there, like you said in the forest too, with you, like some of the speakers are there. Does that mean in order to do the audio on Clubhouse that you'd have to isolate their audio so that you wouldn't be hearing it across people?
No, you
Yes,
just
they
got to tell
walk
them to
physically
mute and
12 feet.
unmute themselves when they speak.
Ah,
Hey,
got it.
Tyler, there's actually a couple of big news related to what you're just talking
Go
about.
ahead.
C Event just is doing a deal with a SPAC. They're going to merge in with a SPAC at a valuation of $5 billion. So you could explain. You probably know C Event, and some people here probably know what that is. It's a cloud-based software for events. But one of the things, and I know you probably know this also. When you're going to run your event in Stockholm or wherever, if you run a hybrid event and you have something where people don't have to show up, I'm assuming you're going to use one of the applications that allows for video rooms in it. Because I've been in those rooms already for some of these virtual events where you actually can see the person speak. So which is different than Clubhouse where you're just getting a picture. You're actually seeing them like speak. It's more like a Zoom thing.
Yeah.
And the only thing with some of this software is how many people they can accommodate, which is an issue for Clubhouse also.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Here,
there's.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, it's simply one of the beautiful things of what you said was net zero events from a carbon footprint perspective. That's something that's really a wonderful thing to
Yeah.
kind of think through as well.
It's a great point.
And also digital twintertainment is what I would
Oh,
call. Yeah, that's what I do. That's one of my superhero
Oh, hang
powers.
on. I'm
Is
just registering the .com right now. Go ahead.
yes, right now.
yeah, just connect with me if you like that kind of juicy,
Hold on. I'm
conceptualization.
just registering the trademark. Go ahead.
No, but that's kind of that's what there's some dramatic silver linings to this COVID thing, right? So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. It forces us to
it's
reinvent, and it gives us permission to try all kinds of crazy things, which is a big opportunity. So moving on, we've got
Oh,
Dubai makes its own fake rain with drones to tackle the 50C heat wave. What's 50C in Fahrenheit? About 135 degrees or something. Dubai has been drenched with heavy downpours caused in part by cloud seeding projects, which are creating enhanced rain. The UAE city of Dubai has been undergoing a sweltering summer with temperatures regularly surpassing 50 C. Jesus. In response, the UAE's National Center of Meteorology is trialing using drone technology with unleashed electrical charges into the clouds, prompting them to clump together and form precipitation. And you can watch the video of this actually, and you can see the actual drone that they're using in the tweet I'm just twatting from Twitter right now at TNATW. Go ahead.
Tyler, do you
Yes.
know what they're trying in California for the droughts?
No.
I
Rain dance.
tweeted yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Alternative methods like rain witches and such.
Yeah.
The New York Times reported.
They even have a water witch that they've hired to try
Oh,
and
are
find.
you? That's. I'm sorry, but that's actually a famous bar exam question, which is like that's a contractual issue. That's so funny. I mean, the issue they actually have it in California as one of the contractual questions on the bar exam because it's like, well, what if it rains? If the guy does the dance and it rains, is he owed money? If it doesn't rain,
Oh,
is there a time period? Like it's literally a contracts question. And what if someone else does the dance instead of him? Who gets the money? It's really funny. I didn't know they were actually doing it.
that is very interesting. Yeah, I tweeted that story out a bit earlier because they're like desperate, obviously. Anyway, I'm done speaking.
Okay. Anyone with a burning headline, feel free to jump in. I've got about 50 more in my stack here. So here we go. The next one.
Hey,
Hold,
Tyler.
hold it. Let me do this. You can go. Man faces prosecution for getting extra COVID-19 shots to visit Hong Kong. He got 4 COVID-19 jabs.
Whoa, he's extra monitored. He's extra
He's got a
secure.
lot of antibodies. And if anyone needs any
He's got
extra
extra
antibodies,
5G.
he's got fantastic connection. He could face prosecution, Hong Kong authorities warn, slamming his extra selfish behavior from hoarding all those vaccines. I just tweeted that out to the Tech News Twitter account. Thank you to Ida, who tweeted that in. And that's from South China Morning Post. Who was the lady I interrupted? My apologies.
That was me, Tyler.
Go ahead.
MA. So this is one that just came out.
Go ahead.
SEC chairman hints at more lawsuits against stock token issuers. SEC's Gary Gensler is keeping a close eye on quote unquote stock tokens and says the commission may bring more cases against companies that issue them. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has spent the last 4 years attempting to rein in, and by the way, rein is spelled wrong, rein in the largely unruly world of cryptocurrency trading, and that isn't going to change under Gary Gensler's watch. The newly appointed SEC chair told the virtual attendees of the American Bar Association mid-year program on Tuesday that more enforcement action, that the kind that put you on the end to lucrative ICOs, initial coin offerings, could be heading to crypto land. We've bought some cases involving retail offerings of security-based swaps. Unfortunately, they may be more. So it looks like what he's going after. So this is a very interestingly connected article to FTX. Some of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world offer stock tokens to their customers. And I could always go over this in another D5 room about synthetics and what synthetics are, because that's what they're talking about. They're talking about synthetics.
Cool.
And FTX is trading synthetics, okay?
Got
and it says, with just announced 900 million funding round at 18 billion valuation, is one of the exchanges leading this charge,
Booming.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
He said it does not, however, make such investment products available to U.S. clients, presumably because the SEC has already made it crystal clear that security-based swaps, regardless of the crypto packaging, must abide by the federal security laws if they are to be traded in the U.S.
Love
FTX has already changed their FTX.com, and their new FTX is FTX.us. So being in Europe, we utilize FTX.com. Inside the United States jurisdiction, it's FTX.us. The interesting thing that's going to happen, which I clearly could I know that everyone's tech, they're going to be able to hide their stuff through VPNs, and that's going to be the biggest challenge there as well, right? Is that they can hide themselves through VPN and just say that they're in India and they're doing it from India, or they're doing it from Germany and they're not in Germany. But the challenge there is they won't be able to do it because of the KYC AML, and they will have to prove residency in Europe in order to be able to do and actually be approved, because that's how EU is going to stop anyone from coming in under a VPN, because they're still going to make you KYC your residency. or
Yeah,
your
Yeah, but
government.
that,
but quick
I would just
question.
say,
Sorry, what
I,
did one
I
quick
would
question?
just
Just
say,
what does the U.S. what does .us protect them from as opposed to .com?
No, it doesn't, Alexandra, it doesn't protect
but
them from
there's,
anything. It just basically makes a segregation of duties because the law in the United States cannot cross over into Europe. Even though they may want, it can't. They only have
not
jurisdiction in the
true.
United States.
Totally
So
not true.
.us is the FTX for the US Americans that would want to trade on there, like seriously, and do it properly. But if someone's an international person, like in Germany or wherever, they'll go to ftx.com. And ftx.com is the same. And Alexandra, I sent you a back message about this. If you look at Binance, Binance has Binance.com and Binance.us. And Binance.com is the international one that's being shut down everywhere. But Binance.us is the American product that is basically, in theory, aligning by the laws of the United States.
So can I just interrupt here for a second? So what FTX is doing with the security tokens is completely different than doing crypto, because those security tokens are not bearer instruments, and therefore they're incredibly traceable, and you're not going to be able to hide behind a VPN. Though if you lose that security token, they make a new one for you. It is not like crypto at all. It's a
No,
whole nother
actually, Donna,
world.
I'm not talking about crypto. I'm talking about synthetics, and
I
synthetics are
understand that, but we're
tagged to the.
talking about exactly what FTX does. So the notion that Americans can go and use the VPN to do these security tokens has a fundamental flaw in it, that the security tokens are not bearer instruments. They have to go on a chain, and the smart contract in those will not allow Americans to go on the chain. It's the same thing that Securitize does now. You cannot transfer one of their security tokens to a non-whitelisted wallet. And so the security token world works very different than the crypto token world because of the underlying instrument. And that's why FTX US, FTX.com, or global, can operate with very, very good certainty that the product that is the security token is going to stay over there and not be by American people. So I do think
Yeah,
they're different. The
yeah.
disappointment in Gensler's speech was not that he spoke about security tokens, but that he didn't speak about crypto. Then they still have no plan. It is not on his agenda for the entire year to rationalize crypto for what is a security and what is a crypto commodity between the CFTC and the SEC. And that is a great disappointment in order to create clarity for innovation in the US.
Alrighty, moving on. Here we go. More headlines running. Dan, are you in the audience? This one, observable evidence that cloud feedback amplifies
Yeah,
global warming.
that one is actually a really big deal. That one will impact your life more than any other kind of story we're talking about here about social media or anything like that. So one of the big questions of climate change, one of the big, still pending questions was, what do clouds do? You could imagine in a warming world that there would be more clouds that would reflect more sunlight and that would cool the earth. That would be a negative feedback. And then you could also imagine it changing clouds so there's more high pressure systems and less clouds and the earth warms. And clouds are very complicated, very hard to model using the kinds of models they had. So this has been really an open issue. And this paper says that, and there have been previous papers hinting at this all along, but basically, the clouds will contribute to warming, and therefore, when you take a look at what's called the climate sensitivity, and that simply is if you double CO2 in the atmosphere, how much does the Earth warm in a certain period of time? That's called climate sensitivity, and most people think it's 3 degrees Celsius, and but there's a range, and the range went down to 1.5 degrees. And the climate apologists, maybe the best word for them, would say, well, it's probably 1.5, and therefore we don't have to worry. By the way, it could easily be 4.5 degrees, which means things would be way worse than we thought. But in this paper, they've eliminated 5 as a possibility. They're saying the cloud warming feedback means that it can't be that low. So now it's shifting this probability distribution of what the climate sensitive to 2 or more, and again, like probably 2 to 5. And still, I think a lot of people think 3 is sort of the answer, although there's questions in a warming world. Maybe it's higher than in a cooling world. So it's supposed to be a single number, but maybe it's not. Anyway, that's really a big deal in the climate science world because it's constraining what the climate sensitivity is and showing we shouldn't be optimistic that it's going to be this low value.
Thank you.
And
All
anyway,
right,
that's it.
there we go.
There's Tyler.
Yeah.
Dan, quick
Hey there.
administrative question. The B word have already started, not the big session, but they've already
Right.
started. I could start that room now, start streaming it, and then people could come in more en masse when the big people come on stage, Kathy and Elon and Jack Dorsey.
Sure.
So if I do that, Dan, are you able to start the clean tech room whenever you want to and leave it to you this week?
I was gonna go here for another 2 hours until Jack and Elon get on stage. And if you already have
we
a bunch of
clean tech today, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Ben, there's no clean tech room on the
Yeah, well,
host
I was
today.
about to create it, but with the B word going on and everything else, should we just skip it this week?
I would say skip it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Done.
Okay.
I'll go and start the B word event room now.
Okay.
And I'll stream the audio.
Okay. So here we go. Low pay, no benefits, rude customers, restaurant workers quit at record numbers, according to NPR, National Public Radio. Average wages for non-managers at restaurants and bars hit $15 an hour in May, but many say no amount of pay would get them to return. And we see this headline a lot in the U.S. right now, as people don't want to go back to their regular old jobs and post-COVID. So it's going to be still a lot to figure out socially, economically, how this is all going to play out. Retina AI data to predict. We talk about often here at Tech News Around the World about the data you can get from your retina, from your eye. And why do we talk about it? Because the camera in your phone and in your laptop and in your VR headset that you'll buy in September, when Apple launches their futuristic headset, is they have the cameras are getting so good in your laptop and in your phone that it can get new levels of information from your eye, your iris. And what can they get from your eye? Well, I'm glad you asked. They get your gender. They know your gender from your eye. They know your age from your eye. And they know if you've ever had physical pain, like a concussion or chronic pain or vision disorders or obesity or Parkinson's disease or mental health like depression or PTSD or autism or eating disorders or certain skills and ability in chess and sports and math and languages and chemistry, or levels of sleepiness or drug consumption like alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, MDMA, cannabis, just to name a few. But now the headline that I'm reading from our friend who's in the medical space says, Retina AI data can predict heart disease. So we can now add heart disease to that fun little list I just read for you.
Wow.
Fantastic. So next story, Jeff Bezos says we need to move.
1 second before.
Yeah, go ahead.
But just in weird medical stuff, since we have medical people here.
Yeah.
Okay, when I had my baby, who's now 4, they can tell at 8 weeks that through a blood test, not through a scan of any sort, just a blood test, they can tell if your baby, first of all, has genetic abnormalities and is a boy or a girl. That seems like insane to me. You don't emit anything that is your genetic code. How can they tell that from blood? Does anybody know that? I was like, are you serious?
This is a well advanced science. It's called NIPT, non-invasive pregnancy testing, where a simple blood test of the mother's blood it carries circulating fetal cells, nucleated fetal cells, and the technology for single cell genomic sequencing is incredibly advanced. So, the affordability of the technique for a complete genetic sequence is not at a good price point yet, but those tests that you describe falls far short of what's possible in a research lab today, is to give you the full genetic sequence of the fetus within a couple months of conception through the circulation of those fetal cells in the maternal bloodstream. And oh, by the way, half of all uh, uh, biopsies of breast tissue in women, if you look at that, you find that 50% of them have Y chromosomes in the female breast, and that's because these circulating fetal cells actually embed themselves throughout the body. So
Whoa.
women are almost all chimeras, meaning that they have cells originating from different genetic sources.
Whoa.
Is that even
That's
if they've
freaky.
never been a mom?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Is that what?
Sorry, John. If is that even if they've never been a mom, or is this just
No,
weird?
it's just when they give birth, and it's even it's even crazier is that some children who are second, third, fourth in line actually have evidence of fetal cells that have come from an older sibling. So I mean, it's crazy. It's very, 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 very small quantities, very, very, very few cells, but it just reflects the fact that these pluripotent stem cells can embed themselves in multiple organs, and that the so-called immunologic sanctuary of the placenta is not 100%. They're maternal cells that cross to the fetus and fetal cells that cross to the mother.
So is it possible, John, that they can also somehow, when they're looking into the eye, see some of those characteristics within the eye, and the eye just happens to be one of the places where some of those show up?
It's a great question. I do not know if anybody's done it yet, but the new field of optogenetics might actually be able to do that. I don't think anybody's done that yet, but great question with a plausible future.
Great, thank you. This is Clubhouse Jeff. Sorry, I didn't announce who I
Good to
was.
see you, Jeff.
Wait, is
You
that like,
guys too.
are there like girl eye cells and boy eye cells? This sounds so simplistic, and I'm trying to figure out, like, how can you tell from your
Let me digress even further. You know how you've seen so many dogs, especially collies, that have different colored irises in their two eyes? That's because they had two different fathers, and that their embryos.
what?
Truly, it's well known, and it's there's all kinds of fascinating spin-offs of that. But chimeras in the animal world with multi gestations, where there's 8, 10, 12 pups, that kind of chimerization is not uncommon because those embryos are intermingled and they exchange cells.
You could
Whoa.
probably determine gender just by analyzing the photo from the eye because you could see the eyelashes.
I don't know what data they're using, but I don't think it's at the cellular level.
Yeah.
I
So
think it's at the macro level.
so Tyler, this is a really important article
Hey,
to
Jeremiah.
dive
Yeah.
into it. So yeah, so I am a tech analyst and I part of the industry I look at is tech wellness. And so that data to determine if somebody's been sick just from a selfie photo or a high res photo, that has significant social impacts. Just
Yeah.
think about dating apps. What if you selected, I only want to date people that are healthy or will be healthy? Or I only want to hire people that are healthy. Of course, there's a lot of legal limitations on doing these things, but that information is there. And secondly, that means companies like Google, Apple, and Amazon who have this data and or any consumer apps, Facebook too, have a high degree of understanding of how healthy you are and think about the products and ads that they're going to show to you.
And
Now
This
you
is quite significant.
Now
now
I
you
need
can
to buy my.
NFT now you can NFT your eye shot so that people can
ooh,
Photoshop their photos.
Nice, and I'll update my contact lenses to healthy ones instead of unhealthy contact lenses.
Exactly.
the healthy contact market. No, that's genius.
Exactly.
That's funny. But you also now understand why the big tech companies are so interested in genetic data and med tech, in general. Jeff Bezos says we need to move all polluting industries into space. Turns out even billionaires can feel the overview effect. They just come to slightly different conclusions than astronauts.
I need to own all of the industries of the planet.
Yeah. Get all the cows up into space quickly. What an
He's literally wait.
I mean,
Bezo's saying
technically,
that just real quick.
That
All the
actually would
space
help,
companies,
by the way.
all the space companies have
Technically,
different
the Earth
when
emphasis.
is
cows
in
fly,
outer space, so
He's
we are in outer
literally
space
saying
already.
he's literally saying that essentially all those space industries should move off world with things. He literally told all his rocket engineers saying, "You can take as long as you want, but I only want the big rockets that can do industrial stuff." He's literally saying, "I want control of all of the world's industrial power with stuff." I hope that we recognize this.
So next one,
I'm just stuck on the floating astronaut cows. I just can't get over that image.
cows on the moon. MasterCard and Visa competing on crypto cards now. MasterCard is announcing Circle Pay. And now both companies have recently announced that you can tap into your crypto funds wherever you happen to store them directly with your MasterCard and your Visa. And we were with James from MasterCard when MasterCard had announced that, like the hours after it was announced, and he gave us a little insider look as to how it works on the back end. And it's quite interesting. Aaron, no doubt you have some understanding how that works, having worked there as well. But yeah, kind of interesting. This has been a long time coming so that people can spend their cryptocurrencies through their credit cards, through Visa and MasterCard. It'll be interesting.
And Tyler,
Yeah.
just to add a bit of color and without going too diverse into it, they're also talking about stablecoins, so USDC here. So this cuts across. This is on a settlement side where it cuts across that DeFi to traditional finance that we discussed in the
Yeah.
DeFi room earlier.
Yeah.
And so but honestly, this is I mentioned this the last time when we spoke a few weeks back on the crypto side of MasterCard and Visa. These are defensive strategies to keep the cards going. The card business, the plastic card, is where these guys make a ton of money. As soon as we start moving fully digital, MasterCard and Visa are going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, well, check this out. So Sebastian, my buddy from Klarna, the CEO of Klarna, which is the second biggest fintech on the planet, out of Stockholm, second only to Stripe, just to give you some idea. They're at about a $40 billion valuation. And so Sebastian's the CEO, and God bless you, Sebastian, for supporting my events. And I wouldn't be who I am today without your support, as you know. I think the world of that. I'm totally, overwhelmingly biased when it comes to issues of Klarna. I'm happy to admit. So, but Sebastian put out a tweet that I'm now tweeting and sharing right now to the Tech News Twitter account, where he says, because Klarna pioneered and popularized the buy now, pay later model that allows people to buy now, pay later. And you're going to start seeing this everywhere. In fact, Apple just announced it themselves. Just to give you an idea of how popular this is going to be. Max Levchin from PayPal, when he heard about this, copied it to do it in America. People are copying it all over the planet. It's becoming a massive new tech space. And so Sebastian tweeted a few hours ago, fascinating to see the singular focus on buy now, pay later companies, which are blowing up all over the planet, and the effects of the Apple launch, because Apple just announced buy now, pay later. Klarna is much more than buy now, pay later, and we have been preparing for this for 16 years. All the legacy banks, however, what will happen to their credit cards when they sit behind Apple Pay, which they're going to do? All the cards are going to sit behind Apple Pay, and Apple Pay is now offering credit in the form of buy now, pay later. So what happens to your bank credit card hiding behind Apple Pay when Apple Pay is offering buy now, pay later, which is credit? It's a really interesting question. So, moving along, Intel is now testing autonomous vehicles in New York City as part of their autonomous vehicle outfit called Mobileye, which is a great name if you think about it. Mobileye says it's the only one with the AV testing permit for New York City. And let's hope they're not recording everything everywhere all the time. And that's some very interesting data indeed. They could get into some really interesting real-time map making. Evan, you've got one about this DHL expanding drone activities with a middle mile UAV deliveries. This really cool looking autonomous airplane, a self-flying little airplane.
It looks like they're going kind of longer distance
Yeah,
for supply chain linkage, not like the last mile that many of the other drones are going.
right. It's kind of the air version of a semi truck or an 18-wheeler, where it kind of does the longer haul stuff, and then it gets to a more local facility, and then it has a smaller drone. Same with where you transport across states in these big semi trucks, and then you get into the city, and then you go into a smaller vehicle, and then you get to the front door, and then a little cute baby vehicle pops out of the other vehicle and drives it right up to your porch, which we just saw the drawings of that in the patent that was just part of Amazon. Amazon patented this cute little mini car that pops out of when the delivery truck pulls up in front of your house, which is an autonomous delivery truck. An even smaller autonomous baby pops out of the autonomous mother and takes the package right up to your front door. And we just saw the Amazon patent for that, and it's kind of mind blowing. So, Republican lawmaker named Marjorie.
Tyler,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How secure? Can anybody in the room speak to how secure drones are? I'm just thinking back at the video cameras, how easy it was to hack those, the digital. I mean, the TVs, right? So, can anybody speak to how easy it is?
So I can chime in on this. So I was at a DoD, and not a DoD, it was a DARPA thing for like drone software-defined radios. Lots of fun with things, and they were asking a lot of these similar questions. One of the things that an event that happened just before that is there was a little bit of a miniature scandal where they're saying, well, it's not necessarily a scandal. They're saying they were just asking Congress, or Congress was asking, hey, wait a second, DoD, why are we renting Russian satellites to relay drone footage from our battle zone areas? And like, oh, it's encrypted, don't worry about it. And they're like, no, but seriously, why are we relaying this off of Russian satellites? It's like, well, it's a free market type kind of thing, right? And you're like, why aren't we making our own satellites? And that was the whole thing. But the same sort of thing applies to the drones of, wait, where's the communications for these things coming off of? Who's doing the relays on this? This was one of the impetuses behind a lot of the 5G stuff and a lot of the Huawei versus non-Huawei. When you have it's not just essentially the endpoints, it's all the steps that lead into it with things where you see a lot of the vulnerabilities. When you saw the things for the zero clicks and all the fun with the Pegasus and such, the ability to even send those messages in the first place, if you control the underlying telecommunication infrastructure, is a big freaking deal. So when you're looking at are the drones secure, are they not? It really depends on how integrated you are with telecoms. If you have the underlying telecom network, the drones themselves are just the endpoint of that, and you can literally fire them off of the entire communications network that you would use for everything else for consumer stuff. Like Amazon actually for their Sidewalk Labs and not Sidewalk Labs, sorry, for their Sidewalk, the Alexa Magic and all the other things like that. They're literally using something called a LoRa communications standard, which is an entirely different communications pattern. So they have the RF engineers that can do this. They might just make it just incompatible with existing protocols. And at that point, it's more of you have to reverse engineer the underlying protocol. So what I was saying is, it can be insecure if you design it that way and just use off the shelf. You can design your own builds. Amazon's got the tech skills to do it secure. Will they do it? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see essentially how much money they want to save.
It's a fleet risk issue too, though, right? I mean, we keep thinking about the big Amazons and whatever, but they might stumble. But there's going to be other drone fleets, smaller companies that are just going to grab some drones with potentially semiconductors, powered by semiconductors from China, which doesn't matter kind of up stack, as I understand it. That was one of the big issues with Huawei. Was if you control the chip, you can control the stack. So that's kind of it's just like with the digital cameras. That was so.
So one thing to throw out here that's a little bit different with Ardu Pilot and some of the other things, the drone stack is much thinner. It's there's like it has to operate. The main difference between a drone chip and the one you might have in your cell phone is it has to operate much faster, so it can basically control essentially whether it's falling one way or the other. And the other thing is that the communication stack has to basically it has to never go down. There is autonomous flying without communication with inertial. That's another thing. But the key thing about it is it's relatively simple. You can fit the entire stack at a few hundred kilobytes. And the fact is it's relatively well known what every component part is supposed to do. Same thing for the chips themselves. If you design from the beginning to be secure, you can make secure semiconductors that can't be hacked. You can do that. The thing is that it's not that that's never really been a goal. It's just one of those little component parts that just has been chopped away every time that someone does something. And now we have 20 layers in our communication stack. After 20 years and 20 layers of like just incompetence and saying, don't worry about the security stuff. Let's just ship this thing and no one patches it later on. We're seeing the cumulative rot essentially happening in our communications infrastructure and our security cyber things. And all these executives are basically moving the liability and saying, "Oh no, woe is us. We can't help ourselves. No one can defend themselves against state-based actors." They're just basically trying to say we fucked up for 20 years, and they're trying to basically pretend like its incompetence is something that no one can protect against. You design from the beginning, you can do it competently, and the drone people have a better running start. That's not that's impossible to hack, but it's a much smaller attack surface. Does that answer your question or help a little bit?
I
Well,
hope
it
so.
does. It begs the question of deployment. No, I'm sorry. We can move on.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
Tyler, because this could keep
All right.
going.
Moving
Sorry.
on. Here we go. We got a lot of headlines to get into here. A new car that I'm just tweeting out here. This is a solar powered car that looks like a Porsche, but incredibly sexy car called the Lightyear. You have to see it to understand it. The Lightyear 1 is looking more like it will be really get built, as they just found a manufacturer to make this gorgeous solar powered car. It has solar panels on top and it goes into the battery. So you can see it on the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW.
Thought we did that one already, but
We've done
yeah.
several, no, not this one. This is the first time I've
Yeah,
seen this one.
Lightspeed. Yeah, it's got, if you leave it out in the sun and the right place, it can add maybe 20 or 30 miles a day. But it's still a plug-in battery electric
Yeah,
vehicle
yeah.
with
You don't.
extra solar
You can, of
panels.
course you can plug it in to charge it as well. Yeah.
This will work really well in places like Australia with stuff. I'm noticing that they also chose a low to the ground form factor with things. Like this is a pretty good build out here. I also noticed the back wheels. Like this thing's really been engineered for efficiency. They've got like
No, it's twice as efficient as a typical car. That's its big claim to fame, actually. So.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's got some cool design things on here.
Okay, moving on. So we've got what's called Light Nerd streams live actors into classrooms to help kids better connect with educational content. Our kids can't read. As of 2019, roughly a third of U.S. fourth graders were unable to read at a level expected of them. The scores have barely changed over time, and so now we need to start competing with the video games on their goddamn phones and making the content more exciting. And so Light Nerd, Litnerd, streams live actors into classrooms, and I think they might be onto something. There's especially if we can do this new technology of like face prints and voice prints that we talk about, where they're having Anthony Bourdain read, lines in a movie that he never read, and we could, bring back what would be the most ideal. We need to get TikTok involved.
Feynman.
What?
We
Huh?
need to bring back Feynman. Richard Feynman, that would be the best kind of character to bring back with the kind of
Absolutely.
technology.
Agreed.
He's my favorite person in the world.
Yeah.
Master
Okay.
communicator.
Yeah, next one. Where did my air horn go? Here we go. Next one. If we had any doubt about the water crisis, here is a preview of what's to come. New York Times article. Let's read it. It said the headline is "A drought so dire that a Utah town pulled the plug on growth. Groundwater and streams vital to both farmers and cities are drying up in the West, challenging the future of development." From the New York Times. A drought so dire that the Utah town pulled the plug. That's the headline. I'm tweeting it out now. You can have a looky look for yourself. We're running out of water very quickly. You're going to start to see, you have been seeing, if you join us every day, that this is becoming a global issue very, very quickly. We're on page 1. We've got about 90-ish more years to go. We're on week number 1 of these droughts that are going to cause more havoc than you could ever potentially imagine. And then our friend Cal has a headline about Nike could run out of shoes from Vietnam as COVID worsens. Right, Cal?
Yeah, that was a few days ago. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm catching up.
really, yeah.
The warning
But
comes after 2 of Nike's suppliers in Vietnam recently halted production due to a rapidly growing COVID outbreak in Vietnam.
Some of this is showing up in the general kind of mainstream CNBC narrative around the stock market getting affected by people worried about
COVID.
Delta. So some of it's come, but this is very specific.
Yeah,
and I wondered if somebody locally in Asia, they're starting to see factories being disrupted. That's big.
That is a great question, because Vietnam has taken over a lot of the Chinese factory work, and if Vietnam is now getting COVID, and you could see a lot. You're right. That is when we'll start to feel it on Wall Street, when the factories can't produce the goods and the spices are not flowing. When the spice must flow, Cal, and if the spice stops flowing, the stock market goes down.
Without the spice, we're done.
Tyler.
Yes.
As a result, we'll see secondhand markets and hoarding of Nike shoes, and then the prices will go up of those shoes.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what's going to happen.
Yep.
The
Okay.
used car already do this.
Yeah, the used cars are going crazy. That's a great point, John
I'm going to
Francois.
make
We
some.
destroyed a bunch of them.
I'm going to make some shoes out of my extra toilet paper that I hoarded.
There you go.
Whoa,
Maya, that does
gangster here! Like it.
Okay, next story.
Jeremiah, that does one thing on Jeremiah's comment that does give opportunity though, right? Actually, that's kind of interesting. I'm gonna basically start looking for these Nike shoes and start hoarding now. This is
Okay, you're saying like the rapper music videos for the farmers the other day. This is like the future. Like toilet paper shoes is like, man, that person has like obscene amounts of wealth right there. You know, just got all the things.
Nike
But the
Shoes and the toilet
shoes
paper.
Nike
will
hoarding.
the shoes will disintegrate in the flood. By the way, this Apple factory was kind of affected by this drought happening in China now, but minimum impact. There was a little bit of power outage, but minimum impact.
Okay.
So Tyler, on that point, yes, there are droughts in certain areas, but there's floods and rainstorms in
Correct.
others. So we're not losing water.
That's
It's just
correct.
being inappropriately distributed.
Exactly
Or it's
correct.
moving. Or it's moving where the riverways with things. We take it as normal that rivers don't move right now because we stabilized a lot of them. But there's no guarantee that they don't take different courses, which changes where the cities are built. And if you have asset bubbles built on those real estate values of, oh wait, we don't have water in this area, it moved, and we didn't count on that in our 30, 50-year investment plans with stuff, and we still have stranded assets there. That's a big problem for
So
your
Jeremiah,
finances.
yeah, Jeremiah, you'll love this. We had a headline yesterday that the German massive, storms, the massive deluges, they were getting 20 centimeters of water per hour, and they were predicted and they were warned, and the warnings fell on deaf ears because the scientists knew they could see the formations of these things in advance, and then they told the cities, you're about to get more rain than you ever thought fucking possible, and the cities weren't able to do much about it, and then it came. But the point is this is starting to become this is going to become much more common as the air heats. It can hold more moisture, and then you get these massive, incredible downpours that the rest of the world has not really seen. Asia is not so impossible in Asia because of the warm water near the equator, but these happening in Europe are very unprecedented, and they're going to start happening all over the rest of the world, where you'll get 20 centimeters that for normal people, for Americans, that's about what, a foot, nearly a foot in an hour of rain, which is just mind blowing. So
In
that,
China last night.
yeah. I'm going to get to that headline in about 10 minutes. So but those massive new aggressive downpours are somewhat predictable, and we're going to need to follow them almost like earthquake warnings, and to take advanced precautions, when we get a few hours head start, almost like a tsunami warning. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So Russia just unveiled a new fighter jet to compete with America's F-35s. Putin calls it the checkmate fighter jet, and you can now see it. I just tweeted that out at Tech News Around the World. Next one up, we got as many as 200 Americans now have reported possible symptoms of Havana syndrome. What is Havana syndrome? I'm glad you asked. Well, when the U.S. reopened their embassy in Cuba, in Havana, I happened to be there for the flag raising of that amazing event. And the people working in the Havana embassy started almost instantly reporting very bizarre symptoms of ringing ears and nausea and all kinds of bizarre symptoms. And they believed they were being hit with microwaves, very intense microwaves. And now it's happening in Vienna amongst the Americans working there. And so now this article says that almost half of those reporting the symptoms are linked to the CIA. So the people who are being targeted are CIA agents, say officials, with possible cases in Berlin and Vienna, and on every continent but Antarctica. So somebody's targeting American intelligence community with something that's causing the Havana syndrome, which we don't know exactly what it is yet. It's really quite interesting.
Pretty nasty permanent hearing loss.
Right. Hearing loss is another factor as well, right? Maine's facial recognition law shows bipartisan support. The ACLU urges all Americans to ask their members of Congress to join the movement to halt facial recognition technology and support federal legislation against this technology, which is being used in lots of retailers, by the way.
Where's Charles when you need him?
He was here earlier in our last meeting 6 hours ago. Yeah, but come back tomorrow. Charles will be here when we meet again in about 13 hours from now, and he's the co-founder of America's largest facial recognition system, one of the world's largest facial recognition systems, called Clearview. But Israel's okay, so there was a headline yesterday that Ben & Jerry's is removing itself from the West Bank. You can no longer buy Ben & Jerry's ice cream in the West Bank. And now Israel's prime minister has vowed to take aggressive action over Ben & Jerry's ban. That's the headline from The Guardian. Prime Minister Bennett hits back at Unilever after subsidiary Ben & Jerry's stopped selling ice cream in the occupied territories. How dare you?
When are they going to bomb? When are they going to bomb Vermont?
I wonder what his favorite flavor is.
Oh, let's
Gonna
not
have a
go
whole
there.
bunch of new flavors about this now. Like, it's gonna be crazy.
Oh my goodness. Heavy flooding hits central China, as Jeremiah was trying to steal the headline. But here it is from The Guardian. Heavy flooding hit central China, affecting tens of millions, which means pretty much anywhere in the western half of China, you're going to hit tens of millions with a golf ball. But torrential rainfall and burst rivers swamp the Henan cities, killing at least 3 in Zhengzhou and trapping province residents. And in fact, we had a short clip of a video yesterday that was reported to be from the subway, where the people in the subway car were up to their necks inside of the subway car, a closed subway car with the power out, up to their necks in water, holding on to the handrail above their heads, as if they might need to lift them. Yeah.
If it's the same movie I saw, the car was still moving in with power on, and they get out on the next station, and then they open the door and it flooded the whole station. So if it's the same one,
It might have been. There did seem to be lights on. You couldn't tell if it was moving or not. I assumed it wasn't moving when they were that deep in water, but who knows?
And then one of the cities, the military blasted a dam to relieve some of the water pressure.
Just a note, this might have been one of the first, like in some areas, like a lot of these subways were built over the last 5-10 years. This might be the first flooding they've had. I don't think it is like the very first, but at this level of severity, this might be like a stress test of the whole system with stuff. They might not even have this as a design parameter originally.
Interesting. So, turning to fires, everything is on fire is the headline from The Guardian. Siberia hit with unprecedented burning. Locals fear for their health and prosperity as smoke from the raging forest fires shrouds an entire region of eastern Russia. And if you don't quite understand how large Russia is geographically, try looking at a map upside down and you'll be stunned to realize it's about a third of the planet is Russia. So it's a tremendously huge area, and Siberia is an absurdly, unimaginably large area, and it's on fire. So, and they have no way of stopping it. Fun times. Next article is first total artificial.
Hey, Tyler,
Yes?
one last thing on that.
Uh-huh.
That temperate rainforest, well, that body of trees is the Earth's lungs. Those are the biggest lungs on the Earth.
Yeah, that and the Amazonian rainforest. Yeah. So
and the oceans.
We've got first total artificial heart successfully transplanted in the U.S. The first total artificial heart was transplanted at the Duke University Hospital into a 39-year-old man who experienced sudden heart failure. Let's hope they mean before the transplant, not after. You might want to rewrite that headline, because that sounds kind of bad if it's taken the wrong way. New electric car, and this is no ordinary electric car. This one mines crypto while it charges. An new all-electric car is designed to mine crypto while it charges from Daymac. The forthcoming 2023 vehicle could transform the audio industry. I just tweeted it out at the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. Next article. Let's go. Let's keep it going. We got Republican lawmaker Marjorie Taylor Greene's Twitter account was temporarily suspended when she posted that the coronavirus is not dangerous for non-obese people and for people under 65 years of age. And she was suspended for, what was it, Cheryl, 10 hours or something? While she slept.
12 hours.
12 hours. There
yes.
You go. But she's back at it. I can't wait for her next tweet. So next article, future belongs to renewable energy as Greenland ditches CO2. Greenland announced a halt on new oil and gas exploration, citing climate and other environmental concerns. You go, Greenland. You do. Look at you doing it. Amazon will end on-site COVID testing at its U.S. warehouses. The change comes as case rates are rising around the U.S. kind of makes you wonder what's what's going on there? Why are you stopping COVID tests when there's a new Delta coming up? Anyone got any ideas on that one? Maybe they
If you
don't.
don't know, can't hurt you.
Yeah.
Spice looks slow.
They're taking the Trump strategy. Stop testing and the numbers go down.
the chip world's most important machines are made near cornfields in the Netherlands. The US is trying to block China from buying them. This is a really interesting story, and now it's becoming mainstream news. We discussed it here weeks ago, in part because a friend of ours from Germany who used to work for ASML, and there's a really amazing company in the Netherlands. As I recall, ASML is the name of the company.
That's right.
That's right. Cheryl knows it because she worked in semiconductors and what's at TSMC, no less. And so what's happening is TSMC makes these really amazing specialized semiconductors and microprocessors, these little chips that we use in all of our products. And America needs those chips. Everyone needs those chips, especially America and China needs those chips. And they're made in Taiwan. And so China really, 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 really wants those chips, and so does America. And it turns out if you want to make the machine that makes those chips, you need another machine that makes the machine that makes the chips. And the machine that makes the machine is made in the Netherlands by a company called ASML. And America has done a deal with Netherlands that prevents China from getting the machine that makes the chips. So guess what? They're not going to get the machine that makes the chips because they can't get the machine that makes the machine that makes the chips. Does it make sense?
I got to do he was obsessed with pinball, but we spent like 2 days together at a hardware hackathon. This is what he did his free time. In his day job, though, he was the lead CAD integrator for the machine that's at the heart of like all those Intel factories. It's that magic machine right there. And what he's describing was a fascinating pattern where essentially the engineers that basically have this institutional knowledge of all the little hacks that they've done over the decades, and his job was to integrate all of them and the millions of parts and components into the magic machine at the center of the entire multi-billion-dollar. You can basically look at Intel, you can look at TSMC as almost like giant assembly lines that just basically are built around the full lithography machine at the very center of the whole thing. One magical thing most people don't realize, it's not that hard to reverse engineer if you know what problem you're trying to solve. Most groups don't know what problem they're trying to solve, and they're trying to just copy and paste what currently exists, and that will take them good 5-10 years. There are some really unique components of the photolithography. We can do a whole breakout around that sometimes. It's a fascinating subject.
Okay, here we go. Moving on. Hot news story. This is breaking news, by the way, so we got a whole different sound clip for this one. Epic Games is the platform that many game users use to develop video games. And Epic Games is huge. They have their own video games, of course, but they also have the Unreal Engine and this platform that lots of not only do game developers use Epic's platform to develop their own games, so do architects, so do city planners, so do future VR creators are all using Epic's tools. They're kind of the new Adobe, honestly.
They're like the Fortnite of their industry.
Yeah. So, they also make Fortnite. So the other thing is they have just acquired Sketchfab, which is a tiny startup that we've mentioned here many times when we talk about the future of augmented reality and virtual reality. And this is a fantastic acquisition. Holy shit, is this cool? Because Sketchfab, if you go to sketchfab.com, you will see Sketchfab is building the world's biggest library of 3D items. And you can make a 3D item in a piece of software by hand. It's very difficult. Or you can take out your iPhone and put something in front of you on your desk and move your phone around the item, and voila, bada boom, bada bing, you've now got a 3D model. And people are 3D scanning everything around them all the time. I'm talking millions of people scanning tens of objects every day, creating tens of millions of objects a day into Sketchfab. And that's fantastic because when we go into AR, you're now going to have an unlimited panopticon, cornucopia, unlimited supply of everything you ever imagined is available in 3D for you to move inside of the VR environment. thanks to Sketchfab. But now the Epic Games, which is the maker of the platform, think Adobe like Photoshop, and then think of Sketchfab as the little clip art that you put inside of Photoshop, but in a full 3D VR environment. So you've got the 3D environment, which is Epic has that, and then you've got Sketchfab, which is the library of all of the 3D content that will go into that. And it looks like Nicholas just joined right on time. Nicholas, could you raise your hand and make a comment about Epic Games buying Sketchfab? I need, yeah. Nicholas?
I can stall for 20 seconds.
Go ahead.
This is a quick thing. So, if people want to know more about the technical side of this, GLTF is one of the key technologies. Anyone connected to that was an enormous amount of standardization effort across like 80 different companies. It was a big part on like the front end, the back end, the streaming, all that stuff to make the technical part of that work. Sketchfab was one of the earliest supporters of this technology, and a lot of their mark was on that. One last little thing is, I got to actually meet the team of that when they were only like 8 guys, and they just got the thing to Silicon Valley. It couldn't happen to a nicer group of people. They're really humble, very technically skilled. I'm very happy to hear this. It's like, remember them when they were in LinkedIn Labs 10 years ago. That's great.
Yeah.
These guys are great.
Was Nicholas able to join us? And welcome back, Dr. Francine.
No, he hasn't yet. I'll just see where he is.
That's okay. I think people get the idea. So that's a fantastic headline, by the way. And moving on, we were just talking about chips, right? Semiconductors and ASML in the Netherlands. And now, according to the Wall Street Journal, chip shortage reaches smartphone makers. Shipments are slowing and customers are seeing their first significant price increases in years as stockpiles of phone manufacturers with purchase of chips, that are not ready. And so even Apple is getting low on supplies of some of their most common devices like iPads and whatnot. And then the next article is totally related. Chip fraud is rampant as desperate buyers turn to eBay, click on targeted web ads, and of course, a bunch of them don't work, one buyer says. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. The title is, What's Worse Than a Chip Shortage? Buying Fake Chips. The global chip shortage has created a goldmine for bad actors as dubious sellers buy ads on search engines to lure desperate buyers. That's how bad it's getting. Next up, White House says social media networks should be held accountable for spreading misinformation.
Wait, go back to chips. Apple usually releases its new iPhone in September.
That's right.
Or October.
September, yeah.
Yeah. So does that mean we're not getting it?
No, I wouldn't say that. It might take a lot. But what they do is they announce in September, usually around September 7, 8, 9, 10. They host an event each year where they showcase and give the first preview to all the journalists, their chance to touch it and review it and everything else. And then at that event, they give a date of when you can actually buy it. And sometimes the date is tomorrow. Sometimes
2 months later.
Yeah, sometimes the date is, November 20th. Sometimes the date. And so they're going to tell us, they're going to know when the date you can go order it is. And it might be longer than normal. It might be December this year.
Well, I'm waiting with bated breath because I didn't upgrade last year. So I was thinking
Dr. Francine, to answer to your concern, don't have to worry because if the iPhone is supposed to be for autumn, the chip should be already out by now. They're already,
there's a lead time.
Transistor, no worries. It's not. I don't think they're affected.
It's the one afterwards that's screwed.
Yeah.
Tyler.
Okay, well, good. I'll definitely upgrade this year.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tyler, just really quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Another kind of silver lining or kind of outside the box point here is that this shortage of the semiconductors is hopefully teaching everybody that you don't need to upgrade every other freaking year on these devices because of the carbon footprint. So if
agree, totally agree.
If this can start to catalyze pressure on the Apples to maintain support for older devices, that's really what we're hoping for here. But I can tell you all, I have 3 2012 laptop MacBook Pros that I use. So the whole extension of reuse of our digital lifestyle and electronics is really a hopeful thing. Thanks, Tyler, for allowing me to share that point.
Sure. So, Jeremiah, you got an article about Amazon. You want to share that? Did Jeremiah jump or is he muted?
Papa Bezos.
Yeah.
How will we hear about him?
Amazon patented a fantastical floating airship warehouse for its delivery drones. You got to see this to believe it. I'm tweeting it right now so that you can see what I'm talking about. There's a big image to understand this incredible headline. Where did it go? Where did you go? Where did it go? Here it is. So it shows a patent. When you do a patent, you have to draw a figure, and this figure shows this fantastical floating airship, like a big blimp warehouse. And so this blimp, this is mind blowing.
Whoa! This is an actual blimp here. Like it's a fly. It's not the blimp is loading from a floating like on the ocean. It's flying in the sky here.
Yes, it's a big blimp floating in the sky, and
it's like Hindenburg,
like the Hindenburg, and it's being used as the distribution hub for the delivery drones. So you have drones sending you stuff to your house, flying back to the blimp, getting more stuff, flying it to your neighbor's house, flying back up to the blimp, getting more stuff, flying it across the street to somebody else's house.
This would work really well for small, high-value items like cell phones, drug deliveries, like for things that are very high, very not a lot of weight, but a lot of value. Also, Magic the Gathering cards apparently are about as more valuable than cocaine. By the way, I've run the numbers for how many grams for dollars with stuff. It's crazy. This would work really well for that. The key part about this, though, permitting. The permits for essentially for parking your aerial blimp up essentially right where you want it over a city versus building a warehouse and building all the roads around. You could basically launch into new markets with this in a really weird, fun way. And it's a permanent advertising floating in the sky, going, yes, we pay our penance to Amazon. It delivers. It's like the like cargo cults, like literally like John Frum delivering cargo from the sky.
Yeah, but
next thing you will see is hijacking of these drones carrying mobile phones.
This sounds awesome.
But Jeff wasn't joking when he's talking about getting things up in the air. He's moving warehouses up into the air in the form of these big Hindenburg-like airships. That's wild.
You only need to keep a few in your supply chain. Doesn't have to do that for he only has to put 0.1% of their supply chain on that, and it would have an enormous effect on essentially like the high value goods right where you need them. Like groceries, actually, for certain kinds of groceries, that would actually fit quite well. It's just a forward staging site, and yeah, there's some unusual things you do with flying ships that are awesome.
It's a drone.
Also, Google, I think he's trying to make fun of the Google guys.
Better. But Chris, that's going to work better though for initially for B2B rather than B2C because residential areas already have bans against flying drones over neighborhoods. And then you do have that issue of the unsightly blimp. And so at some point, they're going to have to really think about the aerial regulation strategy there and preventions that are going to take place. I mean, you're already seeing.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, friction.
Amazon's going to have to lean heavily on the laws.
All right. So White House says social media networks should be held accountable for spreading misinformation. Social media giants should be held accountable for publishing information. The White House communications director said Tuesday the comments are the latest from the Biden administration in a tiff over whether or not social media companies, specifically Facebook, are harming users by showing COVID-19 misinformation. When asked by MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski whether these companies should be held liable for publishing false information that causes people harm, Kate Bedingfeld said that the administration is reviewing policies. Wow. When asked by the company is held reliable for publishing on it.
Tyler, I just want to add something.
That could include, and they said it could include amending the Communications Decency Act or Section 230 of the Act. We're reviewing that, and certainly they should be held accountable, she says. And I think you've heard the president speak very aggressively about this. He understands that it's an important piece of the ecosystem. And then one other quote. Sorry to John Francois. It says. They really look. The only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. That's the Joe Biden quote. And then she says again, I would go back to there are conservative outlets who are creating irresponsible content that are sharing misinformation about the virus that's getting shared on these platforms. She says, "Go ahead, Jean Francois."
Yeah, I was just saying regarding the Amazon patented floating airship. It seems a 2016. Patent and 2016 articles. I'm not sure, but I'm just seeing this, and I think it's 2016.
Okay. Maybe they just got it awarded, and so that would make sense. It takes several years sometimes to get patents awarded.
Tyler,
yes,
is there an implication on the medical field for doctors who are not getting vaccinated? And if you enter in a conversation with a doc and they're saying, "Oh, I'm not going to get a vaccination," blah blah blah, is that, do you think, something that could be up in the air with regards to this this point?
that's a question for some of the med folks. That's way out of my scope.
That's what happened in France. Specifically, Macron announced that anyone in the health sector who is not vaccinated by a certain date will no longer be able to do his job.
Oh, wow.
Woo!
Whoa, hot on the mic. Macron coming in hot on the mic. That's a big one. So next story, U.S. megabank J.P. Morgan to hire more blockchain talent. The new job postings come shortly after J.P. Morgan's analysts forecast that Ethereum's upcoming transition from proof of work to proof of stake, and they're not fooling around. Next article, what do we got here? China adding finishing touches to the world's first thorium nuclear reactor. China is moving ahead with development of the experimental reactor that would be the first of its kind in the world, but could prove key to the pursuit of clean energy. Chris, what the hell is a thorium nuclear reactor?
Okay, it's like a normal reactor. It's just a little bit shinier, and it doesn't officially make weapons with stuff. And I say officially, that's actually a physics thing. We didn't build out the thorium reactors because we said, let's do uranium instead. There's a little bit more thorium in the world that you can mine. There's a lot more uranium that you can get from the oceans. It's alternative tech. It's a little more dangerous to build because it's related to a molten salt reactor. It's a little bit different, but typically they're combined together. Molten salt is nice and shiny until you spray some water on it. If the water gets in the wrong spot, they go boom. So they stayed away from these designs for a little while. A little more risky. Key part to remember about this, we've had these designs and people begging to build this for decades here in USA. And what happened is we said, if you want to build it, go to China with stuff. They'll do it. Our atomic energy regulatory groups literally said, Nuclear Regulatory Commission literally said to any group that was working on TerraPower, Bill Gates, doesn't matter what backing you had. If you want to build this, go to Russia or go to China. You're not allowed to build it here. So that's essentially what happened and they're building it there. Now, If we decided we want to do it...
Okay, we got it. New virus, a cool new trick. Scientists have found a way to neutralize viruses using objects made, like what they call DNA origami. So they're kind of like wrapping the virus around in paper, so to speak. And you have to see this to understand what I'm talking about. So I'm tweeting it from the Twitter account at TNATW, and you'll see this clever little technology that neutralizes the virus in what they call DNA origami by kind of wrapping itself around the virus. Kind of wild. Next one. Speaking of COVID, and we were just talking about Trump's approach to battling it. Here's the headline. Pro-Trump group files motion against FDA to stop COVID-19 vaccinations in the U.S. The group, America's Frontline Doctors, held a press conference in July 2020 with a woman kind of as the spokesperson. What you might remember this bizarre moment where there was people dressed as doctors in white lab coats standing in front of what appeared to be the Capitol building on the steps doing a press thing. They called themselves America's Frontline Doctors. And the group held a press conference in July 2020 where with a woman who says the world is run by secret lizard people. And now the pro-Trump group is filing a motion against the FDA to stop vaccinations in the U.S.
Is this what the lizard people want?
Yeah, the quote is, the CDC data shows that vaccines are not effective in treating or preventing COVID, the group claims. And the group, and that's just one of the many ludicrous assertions made in the lawsuit, which is filled with dozens of pages of conspiratorial nonsense and scientific illiteracy, including an unfounded claim that coronavirus vaccines have killed at least 45,000 people in the U.S. There are even bizarre tables that appear to have been ripped directly from the internet, warning that health measures taken to protect against COVID-19 infection are identical to communist brainwashing methods first identified in the 1950s. So,
Tyler, should we even give publicity for this nonsense?
Yeah, we're driving awareness that this nonsense exists. because some people are seeing it and not understanding it as the nonsense that it is.
But just to share, Tyler, last week, my brother-in-law, he's a physician, fully vaccinated with BioNTech, got positive on COVID with symptoms. And thereafter, his wife, also a physician, also fully vaccinated, also got COVID with symptoms. And again, that's what just, and then some news and analysis are here really on the Delta variant, not being fully covered. Of course, maybe it's less effective or maybe it's less violent. But like I'm just saying, for my family and involved last 2 weeks, one and then the other, all vaccinated, getting and not a light one, really with good heavy symptoms.
Brain damage is apparently covered under the ACE. Like it's a mild symptom apparently. So COVID is something we can prevent people from dying from with the vaccine. That's great. We still haven't fully accounted for the long COVID stuff, and studies are being commissioned on the right now, and it's something very much to pay attention to.
Here's a tweet talking about basically blaming the conservative media ecosystem for all the death and destruction, and they quote a doctor that in Alabama who said that all but one of her patients with COVID was vaccinated, and the one who was vaccinated needed a little bit of oxygen, and others are dying. And they say, this quote, one of the last things they do, the people who weren't vaccinated, one of the last things they do before they're intubated is to beg me for the vaccine. I hold their hand and tell them that I'm sorry, but it's too late. And that's because of just stupidity. This is not like the normal thing breaking out where you have no protection. We have protection, and people aren't taking it because they hear stupid stuff on TV and on Facebook.
Well, and there is the famous question of what do you call the person who graduates last in their medical school class? Answer: doctor.
So well, that's not the problem here. This is like Tucker Carlson.
No. But what I'm saying is these groups of physicians who are coming out against vaccines are not scientifically rigorous in their claims.
Okay.
I don't think so much the doctors as it is, trying. It's the major media figures that are doing it, and politicians that are doing it. The entire party, a political party that's doing it. It's pretty crazy when you think about it.
It is super
and
crazy.
Then, of course, there
we go. We're moving on. Facebook's automatic systems keep insisting the word hoe, H-O-E, violates community standards, and a gardening group has a whole lot of problems with Facebook's algorithms.
They're going to deploy regex weapons on them now.
This gardening group keeps getting banned for using the word hoe, H-O-E, on Facebook, because hoe is on the blacklist of words you can't use on Facebook, and the gardening group has a whole lot of problems with Facebook. That's the headline. The platform's automated system keeps insisting the word hoe violates the community standards. Oh my goodness, you can't make that up. That was too good. Next one, the FDA conducted an internal inquiry this year after allegations were made that the agency was collaborating too closely with Biogen, maker of the Alzheimer drug Aduhelm. And thank God we have John here. How an unproven Alzheimer drug got approved. Though some of its own senior officials said that there was little evidence of benefit for patients, the FDA nonetheless green-lighted Biogen's Aduhelm, and this coming in from the New York Times. Comments, and I think Danish.
Yeah, there were conversations between the FDA and the manufacturer Biogen that were back channel and reportedly violated FDA protocols. So the investigations are underway. This is all going to come out in the wash as to whether there was improper behavior or not. Managing the kind of data they're dealing with is extremely difficult. If the cost of the drug were not so extremely high, there would probably be less of a controversy than there is, but nonetheless, still a controversy about the process itself.
Got it. Thank you. Next one. India food delivery startup called Swiggy raises $1.25 billion led by Swedbank. And that tells you all you need to know, that food delivery is happening not just in the U.S., it's happening in India, it's happening in Colombia. We read about a big food delivery company raising $1 billion down in Colombia. It's happening everywhere. and the investors are all in on it. And next article, Google launches $10 billion digitization fund in India. The fund will be deployed to accelerate Google's efforts through a mix of equity investments, partnership, operations, infrastructure, and ecosystem. Next headline, California utility says its equipment may be linked to the fire. Pacific Gas and Electric equipment may have been involved in the start of a big Dixie fire. And I had somebody DM me who works there and said, yes, we did. And he had more additional details. And if that person's there, feel free to jump in, raise your hand, and let us know the inside scoop as you did in my DMs. Next article, Bezos blasted for traveling to space while Amazon workers toil on Earth. According to The Guardian, space-obsessed billionaires come under fire with Amazon founder declaring the critics largely right. Interestingly, kind of neutralizing their point. Also, Guardian Fund says Palantir is becoming one of the more important global software companies. Guardian Fund is an investment management firm, published its second quarter 2021 investor letter, a copy of which can be downloaded in the tweet I just sent, in which they say that Palantir is becoming one of the more important global software companies, which is indeed very true. Canada took a risk delaying second COVID vaccine doses. Now its vaccination campaign is one of the best in the world. Experts weigh in on the pros and cons of how Canada broke with the U.S. on the vaccination strategy. Just tweeting that out now. Thank you to Heyman for that one. And Emmanuel Macron shamed into embarrassing U-turn after violence erupts, after mass protests sparked over introduction of the controversial health pass. Is he not doing the health pass anymore? Has France done a U-turn on that? They were saying they were going to require everyone to have a health pass and show vaccination proof to enter supermarkets and shops and the metro and stuff.
I haven't seen a reversal. I've even seen more. There you go. Maybe more restrictions on applying the passport to more places.
It's already started to be deployed. You know, my son had a swimming lesson today, and we had to show the pass, and we received a note yesterday night saying that we would not be admitted into the swimming pool should we not be able to show the pass. So there are multiple options for the pass, but it's already been implemented.
Okay, thank you for that.
Not heard about the U-turn, but I will track it down and report to the room if I see it.
Maybe he's watering it down and not U-turning. Interesting. Thank you for that. What is the headline I have that is not up to the hour accurate? It says that COVID-19 cases pass 71 in Tokyo Olympics. An American gymnast and a Czech beach volleyball player were added to the tally Tuesday of people accredited for the Olympics, totaling 71. Cheryl, can you give us the update there in Tokyo?
Yeah, Mexican team also have a few.
Mm-hmm.
And the Uganda guy who went missing, they found him and then sent him back home already.
And so can you get us the head count?
Okay, I'll check the latest number now.
Okay, majority of COVID misinformation came from 12 people. This coming from The Guardian. The CCDH finds disinformation dozen have combined following of 59 million people across multiple social media platforms. And this disinformation dozen is the majority of COVID misinformation on social media, according to The Guardian. And
absolutely.
Yeah, biological fingerprints of long COVID in blood could lead to diagnostic test. Condition can persist for months, experts say. Biological fingerprints of long COVID in blood could lead to diagnostic test. I just tweeted that out. Hopefully, John, Donish, and others can have a look at that and see what that's all about. Next article, Norway's electric car subscription service called iMove raises $22 million, and good for them. And according to estimates, 20 to 30% of new car sales are predicted to be switched to car subscriptions. So,
Tyler?
Yes.
Also news right now, breaking news is that there's an agreement between the US and Germany on the famous Nord Stream.
Yes, Nord Stream
pipeline.
2. Yeah.
Yes, they've agreed have an agreement now basically to move ahead, which is of course a lot of controversy because it connects.
What is the controversy with Nord Stream 2?
Yeah, because it basically increased dependency of Germany towards Russia in terms of on the gas pipeline, and that is something, of course, where the U.S. was not happy about, and there was a little bit, even during Trump time, a lot of discussions and controversy, and really came in very strong. So I'm curious to see what that agreement actually means, because there had to be some trade-off for the U.S. and then against Russia. But
yeah, it says U.S. and Germany reach deal on completion of controversial Russian gas pipeline. The Nord Stream 2 is intended to natural gas. Whoa, that is really bad English. From Fortune, it says the U.S. and Germany have reached a deal that will allow the completion of the controversial Russian gas pipeline to Europe without the imposition of further U.S. sanctions, as senior U.S. officials said Wednesday. Under Secretary of State for Political Affairs Victoria Nuland told Congress that the two governments would shortly announce details of the pact that is intended to address U.S. and Eastern and Central European concerns about the impact of the Nord Stream 2 project. However, there's a strong bipartisan opposition to the pipeline in Congress, as well as in Ukraine and Poland, which fear Nord Stream 2 will undermine European energy security. Like the Trump administration before it, the Biden administration also opposes the pipeline, but insists that sanctions won't stop it. Nuland, the third-ranking U.S. diplomat, told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that the U.S. and Germany would release a joint statement later Wednesday regarding the pipeline. She said Washington and Berlin had committed to imposing sanctions on Russia, and German companies should Moscow use the pipeline as a political weapon. Okay, thank you for that.
Hey, Tyler, I
Yeah.
think there was they may not be current. I mean, there was an article I saw very early this morning. I didn't really consider it text, so I didn't send it to you, about that issue. And apparently, the Biden administration is no longer going to object to this pipeline, from my understanding, and because
Right.
Germany wanted it. And okay, is that what we're saying?
That's
Okay.
what we're saying. They've reached a deal.
Okay.
So, because what was
Got it.
happening before was, the U.S. was warning Germany, this is going to make you more dependent on Russia. Russia's got you by the balls because they're supplying your energy in the form of natural gas, and they can play funny tricks when they're controlling, your natural gas pipeline and put you in compromising positions. And it makes it also, from the U.S.'s perspective, Russia makes money from that, which we don't like, and they make a ton of money from that. And also, we would love to blow up that pipeline, but we can't because it supplies Europe. Meaning, if we get into a conflict with Russia, one of the targets would be that pipeline if it was going to, say, China. But if it's the fact that it's going to Europe means we can't. It makes it difficult for us to use it as a target because it actually victimizes Europe, maybe even more than Russia, because Russia benefits from it economically. Europe benefits from it, in the case of energy, which So anyway, it becomes very sticky.
Tyler, this is Clubhouse Jeff. I have some breaking news that's going to affect you for the rest of Clubhouse going forward. Not only did they update the logo.
Is this about Subway sandwiches, by the way?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Not only did Clubhouse just update the logo, they also made it where you can support your country in the Olympics. So everybody on here, if you've updated your app as of now, you have a flag next to your profile, and it's based upon on the screen right now. So I screenshotted you guys. So Kai, you have an American flag, a Swiss flag. I see all these flags, and it's based upon the first flag that you put in your profile. So if you just happen to put whatever in there,
the lead.
You don't even need it. But the best part is share the great rooms easily. If you press the plus button now, Tyler, and I just did it, I can now tweet this room to everyone on Twitter. So I just tweeted it out. I sent it to you at Tech News around the world.
Clubhouse is not in beta anymore.
So this is Clubhouse Jeff. And
they learned from Club Deck.
They just announced that they're not in beta anymore.
Correct. Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Did we still have betas as a thing? Like, it's like after Gmail went on for beta for what was it, 8-10 years or something? It's like beta means something different these days. I don't even know what's the how they,
no. And my main point is that Tyler tweets so damn much, and he can have all of us tweet this room out very easily now by pressing the plus button, and that's going to be an everyday event now. So that's what I just did for everybody.
Tyler, when you're stranded away from the desktop.
Yep.
Love it. So I just retweeted your tweet, Jeff. And can you do a screenshot of what you're seeing with regard to these flags and either PTR?
Already done. Where do you want me to send it?
Send
I
it
have
on
several.
same place. You can PTR it or
I'll
tweet it,
PTR
and I'll
right now.
retweet it.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. It's mahogany.
Yeah, I'll show you guys right now. I'm PTRing as we speak.
And I'm curious to see what the new logo is too.
Well, you don't have a flag in your profile,
There you
so
go.
it isn't on yours.
There you go.
At all. So
Stateless.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, if you don't have any flags and you haven't put them in there, and that's actually was one of the hacks that I was looking at, is they put everybody's flags and all these emojis in their profiles in order to boost people in certain spots. So if you put multiple flags in there, like countries you visited, and you just happen to have the wrong country first and not the American flag, then it'd show that you're from that country. So
I
you
don't
got
have
to
a
be careful
flag.
which flag you put. Right, because you don't have one in your profile, Cheryl. So if you stick a flag in your profile somewhere, and they're saying it's just for the Olympics in your profile on Clubhouse, they're saying it's just for the Olympics, but I can see that you can use it other ways. But that also means that they have now, which is even more impressive, now another little place in the lower left-hand corner that they're going to start to manipulate. So I believe this is a way that they're testing putting a little icon, like a verification icon, on your profile while you're in the room. But that's just me, so I don't know. I'm just Clubhouse Jeff. Hey,
I think you're on that. You're on that one.
Jeff,
ding, ding, ding.
Have you been listening?
Oh my gosh, you guys all have flags.
We've been talking.
Clubhouse Jeff. Go ahead.
We've been talking about they're bringing verification here for about 2 weeks now.
Oh yeah, no, you predicted that a long time along with other stuff. So what were you saying, Kai? I thought Kai was saying something.
No, I got it.
Oh,
I've just seen your PTR, so I get it. I get it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I get it now.
Or waitlist also.
Yeah. So I hope that helps everybody, but that's big news because as much as Tyler is blowing up my Twitter, which I absolutely love, with all this great news.
Can you
go ahead?
Can you the thing that you PTR'd? I'm not able
I'll
to see it
tweet
because I'm on Club Deck. Can you tweet it so I can retweet it for everyone?
Absolutely, I'll tweet it right now.
Thanks.
I hope they keep it so you can just use general emojis, and this is just one more signaling channel, so we can have audience voting. There'd be some cool things you can do with this.
Well, depending on what you stick in your profile, so it's basically scanning your profile for the first emoji.
Oh, so maybe we can use some of the less common flags as a voting mechanism. This could be cool.
You can do just all kinds of stuff that way as well, and have them update it. But it's just based on flags currently. You could do that, but think about the implications for other stuff in your profile. If you put in a certain link or something else, they're obviously able to utilize that in a way. So
there's going to be some obscure flags getting a lot of love here in the near future based on aesthetics.
Hey guys, I have a quickie question. Have any of you changed the phone number associated with your account successfully?
You can. If you ask them to do it, they'll do it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, you just send it in, and then they'll adjust it for you because people change phone numbers. It's not uncommon, and they typically do it pretty quickly for you.
Oh, wonderful to know because I joined when I was in Singapore, and now I'm back in the US, and so
just ask them, Mohan. Send it to the support, and you'll be able to do it. Love your flag, by the way. So if everybody updates your app, then you'll see the flags, but not until you update the app to the latest version, which happens to be, I'm looking right now, it's version 1.00409. So this is the non-beta version, version 1.
So Messi has a UN flag, huh? That's wild.
So Jeff, did they actually explicitly say it was based upon icons and icon order, or is it based on your phone number?
No, it's icons. I could just test it out explicitly.
Emoji, you mean? That's in your... So you don't have any flags in yours at all, Cammie. So since you don't have a flag in there, it's not representing that flag. And it's whatever you want it to be. They're saying it's for the Olympics, to support Olympics. So whatever team you want to... whatever country you want to represent, you can put in there. So I should.
We are so going to use this for so many other things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally.
Interesting.
So I hope that helps, Cammie. And then what about the phone number?
Oh, I was just wondering how the backend software works. But you answered that question. It is not based upon your phone number.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No, the phone number was Mohan. He was trying to figure out if he could change his phone number associated with his account overall. That had nothing to do with the flags or the tweeting. And I will tweet that now, Tyler, the picture.
Okay. So, many more headlines to get into here. Cal, you sent in one that Bitcoin mining isn't nearly as bad for the environment as it used to be from CNBC. New data from Cambridge shows that the geography of mining has drastically changed over the last 6 months, indeed, as it has moved from China to Texas, in part due to our friend David Chen.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of what David and
Yep.
Ben and also Dan have been sharing here. It's just CNBC's kind of catching up with it and summarizing it a bit.
And then Heyman sent in one about a startup that uses a smartphone camera for wound care. Takes in $35 million. Swift Medical built an app that helps care providers improve wound care, can also determine the depth of the injury. That's, I guess you show them the wound and they tell you all about it. Pretty soon you'll be able to fix it your damn self with some kind of new kind of plastic covering over the thing. You don't need stitches no more. Remember how terrifying that was when you were a kid? Jesus Christ.
That has massive implications for mass casualty events where you have like a lot of injuries in a short period of time. I can picture essentially your cell phone instantly becoming, it's like you get a little thing on your phone saying, hey, we're hijacking your phone for emergency mode. And like 5 seconds later, it's like, go scan everyone nearby and they can start triaging people with GPSs on that. That could get really advanced really quick. That could save a lot of lives in the future.
Yesterday in the MedTech room, we did do a deep dive into exactly that product. We discussed this in depth yesterday. If you join the MedTech room next time, you can bring up the question and get everything sorted out.
And speaking of not needing stitches, there's a venom thing where you can just apply snake venom to your skin and apply light, and it serves as stitches. That's being
I saw that.
Right?
Yeah, it works like a glue almost, using snake venom as a glue.
Yeah, I'll retweet that.
Yeah, it's wild.
Spider webs would be cool too, but I tweeted that, Tyler.
Oh, okay. So here we go. A whole bunch of fantastic headlines. Let's do this, everybody. I'm up for it. You up for it? Let's do this. West Coast wildfire smoke causes hazy skies 2,000 miles away in New York City. Good times. Thank you, Mahogany, for that one. Journalists could face 14 years in prison for embarrassing the UK government under proposed new change. Ouch. Ouch. Law change could see journalists jailed for embarrassing the UK government. Under a constitution run by Priti Patel Home Office, reporters who handle leaked documents would not have a defense if charged under new laws. Oh my goodness.
Hungarian attitude and Turkish attitude now in the UK.
Wow, that's crazy. You guys got to knock that off.
That's embarrassing.
Oops, don't embarrass them. You don't embarrass them by talking about the embarrassment that they might feel embarrassed about their new embarrassing laws. That would be embarrassing. So the FBI says...
I'm embarrassed that she's a Patel.
Yeah. Cal's embarrassed of having the last name.
I'm done for that. Lucky I have 2 citizenships.
Yeah. We see that by your American flag now inside of the new version.
Yeah, I was going to comment about that, but I have a France flag.
The FBI says it thwarted a plan to kidnap Michigan's governor. The Michigan kidnapping case is a major test for the Biden administration's commitment to fighting domestic terrorism and a crucible. And you can read all about that, how they thwarted the kidnapping attempt of the Michigan governor. 2 dams in China's Inner Mongolia collapse after torrential rains. The 2 dams in China's northwestern region of Inner Mongolia have collapsed after torrential rains, the water ministry said Monday. And water restrictions in the land of 10,000 lakes, according to Lakeisha. WCCO, CBS, Minnesota. Water restrictions have been used in Minnesota, St. Paul, and Maple Grove, among other cities. Wondering if you can water your lawn? Here are the details. Oh, if you're wondering if you can water your lawn, here are the details. That's a bit ironic in the land of 10,000 lakes, having water restrictions, indeed. And Poppy sent in one about a Harvard doctor is sounding the alarm over potential long-term impacts of COVID-19 on the brain. According to Boston.com, a Harvard doctor sounding the alarm. This is why vaccination is critical, she says. Harvard doctor says there's more to COVID than meets the eye. You can get permanent brain damage in your noggin, in your wet noodle. Breaking, organizers of the B Word conference, which, by the way, our friends Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk will be joining together in 30 minutes. So we will live stream that shit hot from wherever it is they are meeting. And they've confirmed that the event will feature a live discussion between Elon Musk, Jack, Dorsey and Kathy Wood. And we're here for it, baby. Starts in 30 minutes. And
Tyler,
Hyperloop zips commuters between cities in minutes, moving as many people as many people as a 30-lane highway between cities in minutes, according to Virgin Hyperloop's chief. Thank you to Todd for that one. I just tweeted it, and they show a map where you can get from Edinburgh to London in 45 minutes, from Manchester to London in 18 minutes. I'm here for that. Count me in. That would
just so long as you can buy all the land in eminent domain, and if anyone finds it's an embarrassment, well,
yeah, it's not an embarrassment. No, China
built their rails.
No embarrassment. No embarrassment.
Tyler, have you covered the fact that Clubhouse is now open to everyone? Because it's this news happened in the last 30 minutes, and just want to be sure.
Yes, no longer invite only is the headline. Yeah,
we're no longer special.
Yes, blind man regains sight thanks to Israeli startup synthetic cornea. And let's hope that the cornea shows that he has a healthy iris so that people will date him. But now blind people being able to see with the cornea, and that could lead the way to people using the future of AR and VR with kind of retina implants to get into AR and VR rather than hardware. Interesting, though. I just shared that, and then Dr. Fran sent in a really interesting one about why brands should embrace AR marketing. And because it's going to be huge, and you can see in the image a glimpse of what it looks like, and it's tremendous. It'll blow people away when they start shopping through AR on their devices. And Apple delays Office returns by at least a month due to Delta, and Verizon is also switching to Android messages along with T-Mobile and AT&T. So now you've got all of the major American phone companies, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, all using Android messages as the replacement for SMS. And that's kind of huge. And a huge win for Verizon.
RCS.
Or a huge win for Google, actually. Not enough data to analyze still unexplained UFO sightings, USA reports. The U.S. government report on UFOs issued on Friday said defense and intelligence analysts lack sufficient data to determine the nature of mysterious flying objects. $20 billion.
Where's the music?
What music?
The magical music whenever we have X-Files. Like we said UFO. We're just going to... This is why
sorry. I'm trying. I'm going too fast. You're right. We've got music. Right. The UFO music.
There we go.
There we go. Now we're back to normal. UFOs. They still don't know what they are. They're still unidentified. They're still flying, and they're still objects. Emphasize the word unidentified. That's the headline.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So now I got to find the off button on that file. So this is so there's a $20 billion winner of the American EV startup boom. Anyone want to guess who it is? You're right. It's Saudi Arabia. Well done. Yeah. According to Wall Street Journal, the single biggest financial beneficiary of the EV boom is an unlikely candidate, the world's largest oil exporter of oil, which made a well-timed bet on Lucid, an EV car company. And the world's largest oil exporter made a big bet on Lucid Motors, which is booming. And maybe that's not a coincidence that you've got Saudi Arabia diversifying by betting on EVs. The single biggest financial beneficiary of the recent U.S. electric vehicle startup boom is an unlikely candidate, Saudi Arabia. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia stands to record a profit of nearly $20 billion on a $2.9 billion investment in Lucid Motors, a San Francisco Bay Area electric car maker that is set to list publicly after it completes a merger with a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company, Friday. The Saudi Public Investment Fund will own over 60% of the company, which is expected to have a market capitalization of $36 billion based on the SPAC's current price, which means their 60% of 36 billion is 20 billion, and they invested 2.9 billion, which is about a 8x return, which is not bad at all. So a cool 17 billion in the pocket of Saudi Arabia for their little bet on a little EV company called Lucid. There you go. making money on this EV trend. That's how you do it. And Ottawa tested facial recognition on millions of travelers at Toronto's airport in 2016. And it says, in an effort to identify potential deportees, the federal government quietly tested facial recognition technology on millions of unsuspecting travelers at Toronto's airport in 2016. The 6-month initiative, meant to pick out people the Canada Border Services Agency suspected might try to enter the country using fake IDs, is detailed in a document obtained by the Globe and Mail through a Freedom of Information request. The project is the largest known government deployment of this technology in Canada to date. As travelers walked through the international arrivals border control area at Terminal 3, 31 cameras captured images of their faces. Whether the system returned a match against a 5,000-person list of previously deported people, a border officer would reveal the data and pass the traveler's information along to an officer on the terminal floor, who would track the traveler down and pull them into a secondary inspection. Facial recognition has come under intense scrutiny in recent years. Experts have warned facial data, once collected, could lead to permanent loss of a person's anonymity in public. Much like a fingerprint, a face is highly identifiable and can't easily be changed. Research has shown facial recognition.
Tyler?
Yes?
Last year, IBM announced that it won't get itself into any projects that involve facial recognition. I don't know if people are aware.
I did read that headline, yeah. We did see that. And here's one from the New York Times saying the crackdown in China is a hot mess, and it's coming for us. The stakes in the U.S.-China war over the future of the internet are escalating, is the headline. And as usual, it's probably paywalled. Indeed, it is. So I'm sharing that to the Tech News Twitter account for those who want to read that. And the U.S. hails Taiwan's move to open its first Europe office with its own name of Taiwan, with its own flag flying over its own building. And Taiwan will set up its first office in Europe using the name Taiwan, a move immediately hailed by the U.S. as a way for the island to exert its independence.
They're not going to do some like Chinese Taipei type kind of crap here? They're just going to go straight up Taiwan? That's wow.
And let's see how China responds.
That's new music.
Indeed it is.
Nice.
Rather suspenseful, isn't it?
I love the music here.
And speaking of our friends in China, satellite photos show China's new aircraft carrier coming together quickly. According to Business Insider, new high-resolution satellite images shows that China has nearly finished work on the carrier's flight deck and basic superstructure. And I just tweeted it out. It says, a CSIS analysis of the latest imagery said that the certain aspects of the design can now be confirmed. Different from its predecessors, the ship has a flat flight deck and catapults, meaning it can now handle airplanes. And the two previous aircraft carriers were formerly casinos that were converted into aircraft carriers.
We made fun of them lots and said, haha, it's silly how China doesn't have a navy. And then we went, oh shit, it turns out they do.
It turns out they need one because they need to protect their shipments going in and out of China around the world, because the U.S. is going to withdraw its role as the open ocean, deep ocean policeman of the seas, because we are now energy independent and we are not dependent on trade in the same way that China is. And it costs us a lot of money to do that, and it no longer benefits us. So we're saying, goodbye, y'all. It's been fun. We're taking the ball home. We got our trading partner, Mexico, which has a very young demographic that we can sell shit to for the next 40 years. Have fun fighting each other and patrolling your oceans and controlling your own imports and exports.
We still
with the exception of the... Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, we still have a lot of bases. That might be one aspect for certain routes, but we still have
800.
Like there's security commitments that we have, and they're saying, hey, don't be building up your military. But we're taking care of that. So if we turn that over, that definitely is a factor. I'm just saying there's other dynamics.
We're not abandoning the 800 military bases. We're just going to reel in a lot of the expensive bits of patrolling the oceans and whatnot.
And the Arctic shipping lanes are going to be a major source of contention. Very hot.
Very, very, very hot. And ironically, guess who is claiming, who's exerting a whole lot of claims in the Arctic?
Russia.
Vladdy Daddy?
China.
Vladdy
Well,
Daddy?
Vladdy Daddy rightfully is claiming a lot of claims to the Arctic, but guess who's the interesting person making lots of claims to the Arctic?
She.
China. They're claiming the Arctic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of it? Just in
They're
one go?
claiming everything.
Well, by the way, they are trying to claim the parts of the moon and Mars, and it's crazy. Anywho, they are
They're gonna
built.
have like robots on other planets shooting lasers at each other. It's gonna be crazy.
But yeah, they're now got what appears to be sort of their first real aircraft carrier that can launch airplanes, catapults.
Those are so old school. Everyone's got drones these days.
So, other headlines from around the world: Britain to permanently deploy 2 warships in Asian waters. Gee, I wonder if there's a coincidence between those 2 headlines. Britain said on Tuesday it would permanently deploy 2 warships in Asia after its Queen
Britain owns
Elizabeth.
the seas. Britain doesn't want to lose the seas. That's where it started.
Britain
So
said on
yeah,
Tuesday it would permanently deploy 2 warships in Asian waters after its Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier and escort ships sailed to Japan in September through seas where China is vying for influence with the U.S. and Japan. Gee, what a coincidence.
I got another motivation.
Yeah.
Nostalgia. Just back with the good old days, right?
Oh, Erdogan in Turkey demands the
Britannia.
U.S. support. Here's another fun one. Erdogan demands U.S. support to take over Kabul airport security, and Turkey is keen to take over security at Kabul's airport, provided it has support from the U.S. to help, which is in the process of withdrawing its troops from Afghanistan after 20 years. Turkish President Erdogan said Tuesday at a visit to northern Cyprus that his government is positive about the idea, but has conditions, according to the state-run media. So
Man, they must have withdrawn really fast.
They did. They didn't warn anybody, and they just left in the middle of the night. And the next morning, people woke up and was like, "Where did the Americans go?"
Good luck, y'all.
As I said, America's withdrawing, and we're taking our ball home, and we're saying, "Have fun, everybody! It's been fun." Making sure
there are some places to concentrate on this. Maybe we're going to join for a Muriel nostalgia trip in Asia factor. Man, I don't know.
It's been fun protecting all of your imports and exports. We don't give a fuck no more. Good luck. Oh, you don't have a navy to take care of your shipping containers? That's your problem. Have fun. Ta-ta. We have a trading partner called Mexico. We're gonna be just fine. Take care of yourself, everybody.
Be lit.
Yep. So, fake news and bad now. Think twice before you build a seawall. All the water still has to go somewhere, is the headline I just retweeted. And Apple's iPhone 13 might have an always-on display, is the big news from Dr. Fran that I just retweeted. New report from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reiterates previous reports that Apple's iPhone 13 might have an always-on display. That would be kind of wild. If anybody is lying here, Senator, it's you. Dr. Fauci told Senator Ron Paul in a very heated exchange at the Senate, which I saw the video of, and I just retweeted it so you can see it too. And now I'm retweeting a tweet from Cheryl about COVID measures to make Tokyo Olympics likely to be one of the most expensive summer Olympics in history, on par with the London Olympics. And it shows sports-related costs of the Olympics in billions of dollars, and indeed Tokyo 2021 is up into the $14 billion involved in that, and COVID measures to make Tokyo Olympics the costliest ever. One dose of J&J vaccine is ineffective against Delta, according to the New York Times. And Amazon denied a worker pregnancy accommodations. Then she had a miscarriage. And Walmart got sued for laying off a team member with Down syndrome, and that person has now been awarded, I think it was $150 million. Can somebody
125
125
Wait, is this class action or that one person?
One person, as I
that one
understand
person.
it.
No, yeah.
Wow.
It's but what's interesting is a few days ago, but if I remember, Walmart's saying that it's going to be capped at 300,000, which could well be when it's appealed and all that. But that number struck me as pretty high, though, when I first saw that.
Yeah. Good lawyer there.
Hey, Tyler, can I
Yeah,
just make a comment on the Johnson and Johnson thing you just mentioned
sure.
because I saw it when it
Do
officially
it.
came out. It hasn't been peer reviewed yet, but what they are suggesting is that there would be a booster necessary, but they're also suggesting the booster won't be another J&J. They're suggesting the booster should be one of the mRNA vaccines.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we got a few more interesting headlines here from our friend Thomas Tong. The EU wants to ban anonymous crypto wallets for your safety, of course, and we covered that. That's one of the biggest stories of the day. And now, flooding blamed for massive explosion at an aluminum plant in China. A gigantic
Ooh.
explosion at an aluminum plant in Dangfeng, central China's Henan province, which was also the source of the flooding, which was Henan as well. And now the flooding is blamed for a massive explosion at an aluminum plant. And you can see in the link that I just tweeted out. And a Texas hospital reports its first case of Lambda. A major Texas hospital system has reported its first case of the Lambda 19 variant as the state reels from the rampant Delta variant. And I'm curious, John, what can you give us? What is there any kind of difference between Lambda and Delta? Hopefully somebody has seen some kind of difference between Lambda and Delta. Jeff Bezos' space flight, you can now see inside the Blue Origin capsule on CNN video, shows footage from inside Blue Origin capsule as Jeff Bezos and his crew launched into space. And what else do we got? Jeff Bezos, we got that. And then there's an article about Wally Funk, the 82-year-old pilot who went to space with Jeff Bezos after a half century of waiting. Wally Funk, who trained for NASA's Mercury program, but was denied the opportunity to go to space, went up with Jeff Bezos. And then there's also an article about Oliver Demon, the 18-year-old who also went into space with Jeff Bezos. So I just tweeted both of those out. And then Ken, I just got to your article that the Intel Mobile Eye testing self-driving in New York. It says it's an Israeli company as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you did that. You did that earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
the same
realize
thing
there
you.
was an
Yeah,
Israeli connection because it just said Intel, but it was a
yeah.
collaboration.
I think there's some
They were
collaboration.
acquired.
Yeah, yeah.
They acquired a huge number, but some of the world's best computer vision researchers are in Israel with stuff. When you need to get it's kind of it's not the dirty little secret, but it's literally if you want to get a lot of advanced technology in a short period of time, you just go shopping in Israel and you get like a 5-10 year boost on everyone else, and then you don't tell everyone where you got your tech and say, oh yeah, that's all us domestically. Intel had a weird period of time where they're saying, so we're not going to make semiconductor chips anymore because that's all old school. Let's go into like 14 different other markets and let's diversify and we'll figure out how to do financial tricks on this. And they literally laid off like thousands or tens of thousands of engineers. And so what happens now is like then all of a sudden we got the semiconductor stuff happening now 6 years later or so, and it's a big deal. And Intel's going, oh crap, we need to like spin this stuff up with things. And they're saying, government, please give us tens of billions of dollars. And they're like, okay, this will help you stop China. And they're like, sure it will. And so now there's all sorts of magic happening in Arizona, and they have a shopping spree to go buy up all their competitors now. So it's a crazy amount of internal politics going on.
Okay, so we've got 15 minutes. So the headline from the New York Times is officially the pandemic recession lasted only 2 months. An economic group concluded that the downturn was limited to March and April of 2020, though the pandemic's impact continues to play out. That's from the New York Times.
I want to smoke what they're smoking.
I just tweeted it out. And Fruit Ninja VR2 is coming to virtual reality headsets this year, destroying fruits using a bow in VR. Fantastic. And on the topic of VR, Workforce Solutions' new tool for career placement and job training. Have you ever wondered what a certain job may be like before you actually have to do it or go to school for it? Well, now you can. It's called the Virtual Reality Workforce Solution, new tool for career placement and job training. Test out.
This sounds like the Job Simulator, which is one of the best games ever for VR, except this sounds like a boring actual corporate version of it. Rather than robots recreating humanity, what it was like to job before the robots took over, this sounds like the actual version of it. It's like, oh.
Cheap Android phones hit hard by infected apps in Western Africa. 1 in 9 Android mobile phones in Nigeria has malware-infected apps, according to mobile technology company called Upstream, which studied 500,000 phones in Western Africa. And 1 in 9 are infected.
Value-added marketing platforms. We don't want to disparage them with something embarrassing. Let's just call them what they are. They're market enhancements. They're spreading awareness.
Here's one that Poppy found where it says Mind and Matter, modeling the human brain with machine learning. A content recommendation system based on the user's brain model would be ideal for targeting advertising. Creating such a brain model is certainly a high priority. And they're right. If you could mimic the person's brain, you could then predict their behaviors and make advertising to them rather simple. And insanely effective in a way that's hard to even imagine. So it's kind of a scary thought about how AIs could one day know what you want before you even know you want it. Just tweeted that out. And then this next one is about new marine robot to help scientists track movements of endangered whales. The newest glider will carry a hydrophone which can identify the calls of whales and report their locations. Israel plans to double taxes on single-use plastics and cutting consumption. The Israeli government put forward a plan on Monday to double taxes on single-use plastics in a bid to reduce the proliferation of plastic. And $2.95 billion artificial intelligence in operating 2.9. I don't even know what that means. And then we have Intel's Mobileye again. Thank you to Poppy for that. And then we've got, what else? Oh, wow. Look at this. Just tweeting it now. Xpeng, which is considered the Tesla of China, as they're about to roll out their $26,000 Tesla competitor, is now also unveiling what they call the X2. You got to see this. This is what I want. This is what I want for Christmas. The X2 electric flying car with a 35-minute flight time. It looks like a DJI drone that you can sit in. And the question is, how much does it cost? Take my money. It says, the Xpeng X2 electric flying car weighs 360 kilograms and can fly at a maximum speed of 130 kilometers an hour. It comes equipped with an ejection parachute, in case things don't go to plan, and 24-hour monitoring systems. Joining a list of companies trying to make flying cars more widely accessible, Chinese electric vehicle manufacturer Xpeng has unveiled the X2 flying car. The company's chairman and CEO shared a footage of the fifth-generation electric flying car on Chinese microblogging site called Weibo, which is the Twitter of China. The 1.5-minute video shared on Weibo shows the X2 in action. He wrote, "This marks us one step closer to flying cars that are more widely and safely used." In the video, X2 can be seen operating remotely without any human passengers. The flying car can be seen taking off, flying a distance, and then landing safely back on the land. It is a large drone, after all, and you could control it with a little remote controller, or you could get in the thing with the remote controller and fly your damn self. So it's pretty incredible. A speed of 130 kilometers per hour, 35-minute flight time, weighs 360 kilograms, and has a maximum takeoff weight of 560 kilograms. So you can put 200 kilograms in it, which is 2 people, basically. That's fantastic.
Big people.
2 very large people. Yeah, you can put three distance runners in there. Yeah. Xpeng has unveiled a 4th generation. Yeah, that's awesome. I want it. Give it to me. Take my money. So we covered the marine thing. Alibaba-backed Xpeng shows off its latest flying car prototype. I'm retweeting this one so you can see a shot of it while it's in the air. And hopefully this link has a video that they talked about on Weibo. That would be nice. Sydney firm sells device to Army to detect drones 8 kilometers away, because we know that these drones that I'm so excited to get my hands on will be used for military purposes. And so now Australia has what they call the Drone Shield, which can map all manner of UAVs, unidentified something vehicles, air vehicles. What's the word? UAV. From commercial to hobby devices. The firm sells a device that can detect drones 8 kilometers away, which makes sense because even the DJI drones now can fly 10 kilometers and your remote control can detect your drone 10 kilometers away. So it makes sense. And then speaking of drones, how China's flying submarine drone can change sea battles. Holy smokes.
Oh, that's a big deal.
So, from the South China Morning Post, researchers suggest they're cross-medium, meaning air and water drones, which moved between water and air 7 times in one test, capitalizes on stealth underwater and agility in the air. Although all eyes are on military applications, the researchers believe there could be civilian uses, such as in beach rescues. As researchers' team in Western China has unveiled a drone capable of traveling through air and underwater. Although it's not the first trans-medium drone the world has seen, the Chinese prototype uses a design with improved underwater mobility. Water is 800 times more dense than air and stickier. Similar drones developed in Western countries must rotate their blades at slow speeds while underwater or risk breaking the blades. But this drone goes reported that the drone uses 2 kinds of blades, one used for air, one used for water. Super clever, eh? With one designed to spin 3,600 times per minute in water to generate a powerful thrust. There you go. I just tweeted. You got to see that. Yeah.
Real quick on the earlier headline of the detection.
Yeah.
So if you PTR, this is actually a weird piece of technology. A lot of people don't have heard of history. It's called a Japanese war tuba. This is literally it's an acoustic isolator. They basically have one ear, one the other, and it amplifies highly directionally, like acoustic audio from long ranges. This is how they have these in Britain too. This was like these Dr. Seuss looking shapes. This is literally how they would basically detect, not drones, but at that time it was bombers coming in, and they detect an air raid with this. And they'd just be some dude with this hooked up in either ear, and they just basically slowly scan the horizons, and they'd use this to isolate it. And it would detect about 8 to 10 kilometers away at the same distance. It's almost like we've got like a very advanced tech version of doing the same thing we were doing a long time ago, except we're using small little semiconductor sensors instead of like these massive hulks of Dr. Seuss machines. But if you ever want to see some crazy, crazy imagery, a Japanese war tube is the images. This is insane.
Okay, so
hey, Tyler.
Yes, sir.
I was also wondering whether the flying cars, who will do traffic control for those things, and whether this technology for the drones could be used to even detect oncoming traffic, quote unquote.
Yeah, no doubt they will. It's early days. It's we're in the transition from horse to cars, where at first people were like, that's never going to work, and then it starts working, and then we're going through that phase again. We're going from cars to drones, and people are going to be like, that's crazy, and there's going to be a lot of problems. Yeah, there will be a lot of problems. There's not even when the cars were being built, there weren't even roads, and that was a common complaint. And now people are going to make really equally insane criticisms of flying cars. So. But the efficiency of them is inevitably attractive, and humans have this rather long-standing tradition of pursuing things that benefit them, and we don't accept friction in the pursuit of things that make things more faster, easier, cheaper. And a drone car has tremendous advantages. So we will figure out a way to make it happen, despite the claims of experts that it won't happen. Because the experts around cars said it wouldn't happen. The experts around everything says it won't happen. Yet we figure out a way to make it happen, because if it makes things easier or cheaper or faster, we're going to do it regardless. Even if it's bad for us, we're going to do it. Because that's how we're wired. That's the ants that are making the anthill known as humans. So
that's actually the benefit of selfishness, Tyler. I.e.,
collective selfishness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. We are. Well, let me go on that rant, as we've got 2 minutes before the live stream, which is the idea that there's an inevitability to what we're doing, that we aren't actually in control at all of what's happening. And how do we know this? Well, because the Big Bang was plasma, which became magically atoms, and those atoms magically combined to form molecules, and those molecules magically formed to combine cells, and those cells magically combined to form simple cell organisms, and that all combined to form more and more things. And with each new layer of existence, they miraculously combine to form a far more complex layer, unimaginably more complex, miraculously more complex, divinely more complex, because atoms combining to form molecules, that's fine. Okay. That's still chemistry. And then chemistry, the molecules form together to form cells. That's chemistry becoming biology. And then you had cells creating life. And now you have biology becoming society. And now you have society. And what is society combining to create now? Technology. We are programmed for this over the 14 billion years since the Big Bang. There's no stopping it. This is a process. Every layer combines to form the next more magically, wildly, unimaginably, divinely, miraculously more complex layer. We as society are combining to form the technology layer, which will make us look like ants in comparison. That's what we're doing. Larry Page knows it because he's the one who told it to me.
And then we face a chasm, as civilizations across the universe do at this point, to either wipe themselves out or not, right?
But it's historically
now
very.
We're at a level of it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's very hubris for humans to think we are the end game.
we're now at a point of technological sophistication where we can mine Bitcoin. This is what all the universes come to this moment.
Well, I would say that the AI that we are in the process of developing each day, where first we gave it a bit of ears in the form of Shazam, where this little AI through algorithms can detect any song better than any human ever could, and then we started giving it eyes, and it can do all kinds of things with its eyes algorithm, this vision algorithms. Now it can tell if somebody's Republican or Democrat or homosexual or this or that, and it knows every face of every person on the planet in a heartbeat, and can detect a bad person walking into a soccer arena. And we're giving it nose, and we're giving it intelligence of all, and it continues to get more and more senses and get more and more skills that are more and more superhuman. And we're going to put it into a body like the Boston Dynamics thing, and we're going to create these incredible super beings that are going to make us look like completely unworthy. So it's that's the nature of it.
Bring it on.
Yeah,
bring it on.
that's how we do.
In that context, are we to expect that the aliens are actually going to be not really life forms, but actually
our own creation? You just figured it out. There you go.
Well, they do. There is a theory, or at least I don't know what you want to call it, that we will figure out time travel before we figure out interstellar travel. But my point was going to be, maybe ET's not going to be a living organism at all. Maybe it's just a highly evolved robot.
Yep. Does somebody have now the live stream?
Yes, Tyler, it's perfect timing. Actually, I was communicating with Ben. Apparently, Elon Musk is coming on in about a minute.
Yep.
On a recorded thing, and he's got the room open, which is already open on the Tech News. So yeah,
okay,
we're all good to
so
go.
it's called the B Word event live. Musk plus Wood plus Dorsey. Ben's got it open now. There's 42 people there, and we're all going to head over there and listen to Mr. Elon Musk talk with Mr. Jack Dorsey and Miss Wood about the future of Bitcoin. See you over there, everybody.
See you.
Okay, bada boom.
Bye.
All right, thanks everybody. See you, and we'll see you here tomorrow as usual.